Zelda Invades Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26, Red Moon in the Sky. Everyone rushed out to watch. Carlson murmured, "A blood moon actually happened?" Carlson had heard Link say it, but he only half believed it. But when the blood-red strange full moon really appeared before his eyes, he felt as if the world was ending, and the sun would never rise tomorrow. Rogers frowned. People in the 21st century are really amazing. They dyed the moon red. Carlson looked at Link. There really is a blood moon. Then, have those monsters that various countries have tried so hard to eliminate been resurrected? It's too late. I need to report the situation as soon as possible. Link comforted him. It's okay. It's not time yet. It was only evening now. The blood moon was only in the sky. At 12 o'clock, the power of the blood moon would explode to its maximum. Ganon's curse caused countless monsters to be resurrected from the abyss. Link thought for a moment and asked, have the centaurs appeared on Earth? Carlson, no. Link asked again, what about the Cyclops? Carlson, there is only one in the world for now, right here, in the suburbs of the city that appeared here. Link laughed and said, what a coincidence. Now the blood moon is flying in the sky all over the world, causing panic in all countries. Nick sat on the chair, and the blood moon rising behind him made his face very ugly. Nick murmured, what that kid said was actually true. In other words, that Hyrule and the Demon King are both real. A sports car came speeding over with a sound of "sue" and drifted, accurately scratching the parking space. Hawkeye ran out excitedly, and Natasha closed the car door behind him and said depressedly, how much do you hate those two stones? Hawkeye was unexpectedly very excited. I didn't expect that the blood moon, Link said, actually exists. That monster should be resurrected. I will use the method Link taught me to kill them. Natasha complained in her heart, are you strong enough? Don't lift it up again, or you will break your waist. The two came to the hall, but there was nothing unusual about the location of the two stone monsters. Hawkeye stood with his hands on his hips and looked at the corner. HMPH, stop hiding. Come out. I'll wait for you. Natasha looked at her watch. 8 o'clock in the evening. You wait first. I'll go see the boss. Hawkeye nodded. His eyes never left the corner. He wanted revenge. Then Hawkeye waited here for a full 4 hours. Tony, Pepper, and Zelda came to the window and looked at the rising blood moon. Tony exhaled. Blood moon, okay. This technological world is becoming more and more magical. Pepper said, I'll call Link and ask him to come back early. Zelda, what's wrong with you? Zelda covered her chest, feeling very uncomfortable and having difficulty breathing. It's always like this. The blood moon is when Ganon's power is the strongest. I can feel him roaring. Tony put one hand on his waist and covered his head with the other. Oh my god. So you really are a princess. Link is also a warrior who defeated the devil? Link has indeed been sleeping for 100 years. In this way, the speculation that Link and Zelda are in a forbidden love is self-defeating. Zelda said weakly, yes. Seeing that Zelda was not feeling well, Pepper helped her go back to rest. Tony said, Jarvis, call Link. His little princess needs his company. Zelda shook her head. No, Link has something to do now. When the blood moon appears, many terrible monsters will be resurrected, and Link must be looking for monsters. Then she went back to her room to rest. Pepper was frightened by Zelda's condition. The temperature of Zelda's body was incredibly hot. Her face was a sickly flush, and her whole body was shaking. Zelda smiled weakly. I'm fine, thank you. No need to call a doctor. Zelda lay on the bed, pressing the back of her hand on her closed eyelids, feeling the burning heat in her eye sockets. She murmured in her heart, Ganon has resurrected. I must also find my power as soon as possible to help Link. Carlson drove Rogers and Link to the shield building to retrieve Rogers' shield. It is worth mentioning that during Link's rest, Tony and Zelda helped him customize a new shield sword and a new bow made of gold titanium alloy. According to Zelda's memory, it was made in imitation of the Hyrule Kingdom's guard weapon series. Tony understood the characteristics of Link's weapons, so he made many improvements on the guard suit, which could greatly reduce the durability of Link's weapons. Link had wanted to experiment for a long time. As soon as he entered the building, Rogers saw a figure with his hands on his hips facing the wall, as if he was peeing. Link raised his eyebrows, and Carlson was puzzled. Barton? What is he doing? Forget him. Let's go upstairs first. Several people met with Natasha and Nick. Nick said in a low voice, Captain America, how do you feel about the new era? Rogers looked at the red moon slowly rising in the rear window and sighed. What a mess. Nick. Carlson had previously reported Link's goal, to defeat the most threatening monster in the area, the Cyclops. And Rogers, when he heard that there was a monster threatening the safety of the world, wanted to go with Link to kill the Cyclops and get weapons from the headquarters. Natasha brought a dark blue tights and a round shield from her waist and said to Rogers, Captain, what do you think of your new uniform? Rogers rubbed the shield with his hands and missed it very much. Link, who was watching from the side, was a little envious. This is a vibranium shield. It will not break. It is strong and durable, and Link can even use it to shield against nuclear bombs. Link has destroyed almost tens of thousands of shields. Since he came to the Marvel world, he has been thinking about getting a vibranium shield. He has decided that he plans to ask Tony to borrow some money one day, go to Africa, and find a way to get some vibranium. Nick looked at Link. Whatever weapons you need, SHIELD can provide them to you for free. Link pointed at Rogers' shield. Nick, this is a limited edition. Link felt a little regretful. Doesn't SHIELD have any vibranium reserves? Then Link glanced at the red moon and the back window again and thought, maybe cooking durian during a blood moon can make life-enhancing dishes. So he asked Nick for help, saying, I plan to do some experiments here. Nick agreed without hesitation. He didn't realize the seriousness of the matter. 10 minutes later, the whole shield building was filled with the smell of durian. Carlson fainted, and Natasha got a gas mask from somewhere and put it on her pretty face. Rogers' super soldier serum also enhanced her sense of smell. At this time, she was in great pain. Regardless of the height of more than 10 floors, she directly broke through the glass and climbed out of the window. Like a gorilla, she sat on the top of the building to breathe. Even the eagle eyes on the first floor smelled a faint stench and frowned, thinking, did the dangerous experiment of the research department leak again? Nick's face turned pale, and now he angrily scolded Link with a pale face. What are you doing? Link frowned and said to himself, what's going on? Cooking durian in the blood moon only increased the stink. You are really great. The ranking of the work has risen to the 7th place in the 2-dimensional category signing list. In the ranking of the derivative fan recommendation position this week, it has also rushed to 2nd place, with only a slight gap from the 1st place. It will surpass it with a little more effort. Thank you all for your support. Thank you for the support of Devouring King with 100 starting coins. Thank you for the support of Yuzalmeng with 100 starting coins. Thank you for the support of Midnight Blood Thief with 100 starting coins. Thank you for the recommendation of Angry Lion. Thank you for the recommendation of Bookfriend 201807620043333741. Thank you for Camilla with 12 recommendation votes. Thanks to Yuzalmeng for 4 recommendations. Thanks to Shiki D. Lioran for 3 recommendations. Thanks to Wrecking for 10 recommendations. Thanks to you for 4 recommendations. Thanks to Yurdu and Yi for 7 recommendations. Thanks to Gay Godai for 3 recommendations. Thanks to Chenjaya Tangzio for 2 recommendations. Thanks to Douglas Ziana Lone Wolf for 1 recommendation. Thanks to Guzali Njio for 4 recommendations. Thanks to Bookfriend 14,102,534,302,211 recommendations. Thanks to the old man who talks about gods for 3 recommendations. Thanks to Darkstar Dark for 3 recommendations. Thanks to Dada Yitao for 1 recommendation. Thanks to Attack of the Crazy Buns for 6 recommendations. Thanks to the Good Girl MK for 2 recommendations. Thanks to Wujaya Zio Heyo for 2 recommendations. Chapter 27 Sleepless Night. Link was very sorry that he would never be able to eat the powerful dish with plus 20 health again, but he was still a little unwilling. He touched his chin and thought, is it because of the wrong kind of durian? Seeing that Link ignored him and was still thinking about cooking a different kind of durian, Nick was furious. As a result, he heard a numbing sound coming from outside the window. It was the sound of countless swings vibrating. Roger saw a black shadow like a sandstorm flying in the night sky, making a harsh sound, and attacking the building. He was at a loss. Are these modern people's pets? Natasha changed color. Of course not. This is a bat. Get out of the way. Link turned his head and heard countless frantic bats hitting the window glass like hail. This kind of bat is different from ordinary species. There is only one huge eye on its face, flashing a dull and wild look. It is one of the monsters that Link least wants to encounter in the game. Bang! With the concerted efforts of the bats, the bulletproof glass was finally smashed. It was like a submarine leaking water, and thick smoke squeezed in and surrounded everyone. Nick took out his pistol and shot everywhere, and was soon surrounded by bats. Roger swung with his shield, but Natasha was much smarter. She immediately grabbed a desk lamp, and fiddled with it for a while. The wires short-circuited and sparked. Natasha took this opportunity to light her coat, and waved it desperately. The bats were afraid of fire, and dared not approach. Link immediately took out the guard's sword, and killed a group of them with a spiral slash, but the number of bats was amazing, and it was difficult to eliminate them with cold weapons alone. Link immediately remembered his new skill, bomb. So he quickly took out a light blue round bomb, put it on the ground casually, resisted it with the guard's shield, and did a backflip. Bang! It exploded and exploded into a piece. The blast wave spread throughout the house. Nick, Natasha, and Rogers were all bounced back to the wall by the wave, and fell to the ground, but they were not injured. This is the awkwardness of Link's bomb. It has little power, but has a strong repelling ability. The bomb was detonated in a closed environment, and the bats were instantly killed. Nick got up and was furious. Link, you actually used a bomb in my office. Natasha looked at Nick's face full of bat bite marks and said, don't say it. Link's bomb is very measured, just killing the bats, and it can't hurt us. Link came to the window. This is a high-rise building with more than 10 floors. The window was broken, and a strong wind rushed in, blowing Link's hair messy, and the bat corpses turned into smoke and disappeared. Link looked carefully, and saw the riots on the street. Several skeletons crawled out from the ground, howling and attacking ordinary people everywhere. The whole city fell into panic. For many people, this will be a sleepless night. Nick came up and said, these minions. Leave them to SHIELD. You and Rogers go find the Cyclops. We paid a heavy price to eliminate this guy. You have to be careful. Link nodded and looked at Rogers, meaning very clearly, the battle will be very dangerous. Are you sure you want to go together? Rogers nodded and walked over. That's not bad. Link nodded. We'll go there at 11 o'clock. As for now. Link pulled out the short knife on his leg. The wind howled in his ears, but the cries of ordinary people being chased by skeletons in the underground streets seemed to ring in Link's ears. Link said, there's still time. I'll go and clean up these monsters. Nick stopped him. No, you have a big battle tonight. Don't waste too much time on this kind of thing. Link replied, it's okay. I didn't consume it. I kept the guard's great sword and didn't use it. I'm just worried that the durability will run out before fighting the Cyclops. Then he jumped down the floor without saying a word. Rogers was startled. Rogers shouted, Link. Rushing to the window, he saw Link spreading his iron wings in the air under his feet and gliding down lightly. Nick's remaining eye was very surprised. Equipment developed by Tony Stark. Natasha looked strange. What is Link going to do? Link threw a square bomb in the air and then detonated it. Natasha opened her eyes wide. Blow yourself up. Nick said, did this kid slip? As a result, the three people's faces were stunned for a moment. They saw that Link stepped on the shield with both feet, and the bomb was just on the shield. Link used the propulsion of the bomb to glide quickly. When the speed slowed down, he immediately released another bomb, and detonated it again to gain propulsion. In this way, Link's speed was doubled. The three people were stunned. Use bombs as thrusters. What kind of operation is this? Nick is also knowledgeable, and has seen all kinds of storms. But he has never seen such a mess like Link. Rogers used his enhanced vision to look down, and saw Link jump down from a height, stepping on a skeleton to death, snatching the javelin from the skeleton, and throwing it at another skeleton, killing two of them immediately. Then he attacked the other skeletons without stopping, and immediately felt his blood boiling. Rogers said, I want to fight too. Nick and Natasha hurriedly grabbed Rogers, fearing that he would do the same as Link, and jumped down directly. If Link got into trouble, they had no responsibility, but Rogers was different. A World War II hero, the idol of countless Chinese people's childhood, just resurrected from the frozen state, fell to death in front of the shield building. How should Nick explain this? Rogers looked at the two of them like a fool and said, I'll take the stairs. Then he ran up the stairs with his shield in his hand. Nick told Natasha, I don't know how Rogers has recovered. Go help him and Link. Natasha responded and chased Rogers. Of course she was looking for an elevator. As an ancient man from the beginning of the last century, Rogers was very uneasy about this kind of iron box elevator that goes up and down. What if the rope breaks? Rogers had this concern. While Link was looking for trouble with the skeletons everywhere, a red and yellow shiny metal armor soared in the air and flew quickly. Tony's player in the suit was Aurora Vac/TC, as well as various reports from Jarvis, including several enemies around, enemy types and attack weapons, as well as the riots caused, casualties, etc. Your savior. I'm here. Tony called Link. Link. When Link was chasing the skeletons everywhere, the phone in his trouser pocket suddenly rang, and Link answered the call. Then he kicked the skeleton aside with a sweeping kick, and then kicked the head away. The aggregated skeleton body frantically looked for the head. Link shouted, Hey, Tony, what's up? Then he ran towards the pelvic position of the skeleton without stopping, and kicked it out. The skeleton body and head collided with a snap and shattered each other. Thanks for the message. The word count has exceeded the limit again. Thank you Minecrafter for your 100 starting coins reward support. Thank you for your 100 starting coins reward support. Thank you Muayangs for 2 recommendation votes. Thank you V Magnetic Levitation blog for 3 recommendation votes. Thank you Minecrafter for 2 recommendation votes. Thank you Handy Ufengli for 4 recommendation votes. Thank you Midnight Blood Thief for 9 recommendation votes. Thank you Archimed's Crowbar for 4 recommendation votes. Thank you TZWTL for 2 recommendation votes. Thank you Shulian Sao for 2 recommendation votes. Thank you Bookfriend1403181902146712 2 recommendation votes. Thank you ClownXX for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to the young man, who often reads novels for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to 123 recommendation votes. Thanks to Puppet House for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Eve Dominating the Universe for 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to Handsome Attitude for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Starry Skybird for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to God and Demon Relics for 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to Zeroicicle for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Bookworms for 6 recommendation votes. Thanks to iMiceSlag for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Jianghua for 10 recommendation votes. Thanks to the Association Big Brother for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Spitfire for 9 recommendation votes. Thanks to Red Flag Scrolling in the West Wind for 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to Bookfriend 201701250333284000 for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Zoo9Ye9 for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to SSGSNLZ for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Ancient World for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Grab the Name for 6 recommendation votes. Thanks to Bookfamine Spit Cute Tyrant for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Bonheat for 8 recommendation votes. Thanks to Koonid for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Assassin Jali for 5 recommendation votes. Chapter 28 Iron Man vs. Captain America. Link tilted his neck, clamped the phone on his shoulder, and attacked the other skeletons with a short knife. Although he had to do 2 things at the same time, it was not difficult for Link, a brave man whose fighting spirit had become an instinct. Tony shouted into the receiver, "Are you playing a hero alone? Good boy, you are competing with me for the sense of presence." Then he changed the subject, "Are you okay? Are you not injured?" When he heard Tony running to help, Link smiled, "I can handle it." From a distance, he saw a golden red figure flying over the horizon. Seeing many skeletons attacking him, Link spoke quickly, "Tony, help me search for the skeleton enemies around me and divide them into sections." You will be responsible for one section and I will be responsible for another. Tony snorted. That's what I was planning. I have asked Jarvis to start calculating the number of enemies you and I have killed. Let's see who will win in the end. Link dropped a bomb on the ground, stepped on the shield with both feet, and jumped up suddenly. He flew up with a bang, spread his iron wings to stabilize his body, looked at the skeletons around him falling, and said, "Let Jarvis help me remember that I have defeated 32 skeletons." Tony shouted, "You lied about your record." Jarvis' voice came from the microphone. "Okay, Link." Then he heard Tony mumbling and complaining about Jarvis, and Link was pleased. Tony flew over Link's head and threw down 2 long boxes. They exploded in the air, revealing 2 sharp alloy swords inside, which suddenly pierced the ground around Link's body. Tony smiled and said, "I guess the dagger has lost its durability, so I'll give you 2 weapons as backup." Link was delighted. "Thank you." He raised his hand and threw the dagger in his hand, which shattered a skull together with the dagger. He pulled out 2 long swords and swung them wildly, knocking down a group of skeletons. Tony saw that Link was brave and invincible and was sweeping the skeletons. He knew that this area didn't need him, so he contacted Jarvis and asked him to find another area where the skeletons were rampant. At this time, a round shield flew from afar and hit Tony's head. Tony heard a ding in his ears, and then his body broke through the glass and crashed into a building next to him. Tony frowned. "Who is attacking me?" Jarvis said, "Captain America." Tony flew down in a hurry and saw a sturdy man in a dark blue tights, picking up a shield on the ground and shouting, "You took advantage of someone's misfortune. I'll be your opponent." It turned out that Tony had just thrown 2 alloy swords for Link, and Roger saw it from a distance. He didn't know the relationship between Tony and Link, and thought that this metal-clad mechanical Superman, like these skeletons, was attacking Link. He threw a vibranium shield on the spot and knocked Tony away. Tony couldn't figure out the situation, but he knew that he was very unhappy. He was knocked away by an old antique from the last century with a shield for no reason, and it was the guy that his father always talked about. Tony thought, "If you are really resurrected, let me see how powerful a superhero is." The thrusters exploded, and Tony rushed forward and punched Rogers. Of course, Tony didn't really do it, and didn't use hot weapons, but directly swung his fists. He knocked Rogers to the ground with one punch, but Rogers grabbed his arm and threw him back. Natasha ran over from a distance and was stunned. Link was concentrating on beating the skeletons, while in the distance, for some strange reason, Rogers was fighting with Tony, who flew over. Natasha quickly fired 2 shots, smashing the skeletons attacking her, and ran to Link. With 2 swords in hand, Link was invincible for a while, killing one wave of skeletons after another. A group of bats flew over from afar. Link summoned a prototype bomb, used the alloy sword as a baseball bat, and knocked the bomb away, flew to the center of the bat group and detonated it. Then he turned around, shook his shoulders, and stabbed with a few swords, and 3 sticky slime-like hill monsters exploded immediately. It can be said that he was able to deal with enemies from all sides and was impeccable. When Link was having a great time, he saw Natasha running over with a gun, and heard her shouting, "Link, why are Rogers and Tony fighting?" Link tilted his head, expressing his confusion, and then followed Natasha's gaze, and saw Rogers and Tony rolling together, fighting back and forth. The skeletons around them, for some reason, stood by and waved their hands and cheered, as if they were watching a good show. This stunned Link, and he said to Natasha, "I don't know either." Link didn't say much. He jumped up, threw a bomb under his feet, stepped on the shield to use the impact force, jumped forward, flew in an arc in the air, and then continued to throw a bomb, and repeated this. Natasha looked at Link woodenly, using the shield as a surfboard in the bomb shockwave as waves, and quickly approached the place where Tony and Rogers were fighting. Why does this kid have so many weird operations? Isn't he afraid of playing too hard? Link surfed in the air and rushed over quickly. At this time, Rogers and Tony just separated and took a few steps back, then they punched each other at the same time. Link fell down, put away his shield, stuck his 2 swords into the ground, rushed forward, grabbed Tony and Rogers' wrists with one hand each, twisted his feet, and with a spinning force, he neutralized the force of the 2, and then threw them out. Link stood in the middle with his hands on his hips, wondering, what are you doing? Tony staggered to his feet and pointed at Rogers. This circus performer in tights just hit me with his pot lid. Rogers also stood up with his teeth bared. Tony was wearing armor. When Tony hit Rogers, Rogers felt pain. When Rogers hit Tony, Rogers still felt pain. Rogers, who was in great pain, said angrily, "I just saw you attack Link. Oh my god." Tony shouted, "I'm Link's best friend, and you said I attacked him?" Link was also confused. "Rogers, you misunderstood Tony. Tony just handed me the weapon." Rogers shook his head in annoyance. "I'm sorry, I was too reckless. Mr. Robot, I'm sorry, you are not hurt." Tony removed his facial protection and exposed his head. Rogers was stunned, and Tony said, "I'm a living person. I'm Tony Stark. I think you should know my father Howard." Rogers saw that the son of his old friend was older than himself, and he couldn't help but feel sad. Link said that he could understand. When he saw the fishman Prince Sido, he also felt very uncomfortable. 100 years ago, the cute fishman brother in Mithra's arms was now much taller than Mithra. Tony took a deep look at Rogers, closed his face protection, flew into the sky, and shouted, "Link, let's start the game again. I was delayed by Captain America just now, so it doesn't count." To celebrate the book's collection reaching 1000, there will be an additional chapter tomorrow. Thank you all for your enthusiasm. This is why I don't mind posting a thank you list in every comment. I see your efforts and enthusiasm, and hope that everyone can continue to support this work. There is one more chapter before 12 o'clock. Thank you book friend 201710070109234024 starting coins. Thank you book friend Minecraft for 100 starting coins. Thank you Shiraka Rocco for 3 recommendation votes. Thank you Good Girl MK for 2 recommendation votes. Thank you Douglas Salty Fish Lone Wolf I for 2 recommendation votes. Thank you Midnight Blood Thief for 8 recommendation votes. Thank you book friend 2,017,125 0333284000 for 2 recommendation votes. Thank you Railgun 100,864 for your recommendation vote. Thank you Ni, GGR 5 recommendation votes. Thanks to Zuna and Union 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to the young man, who often reads novels 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Huangxiang 1237 recommendation votes. Thanks to Yuana and 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Shuayao 201808161357267661 recommendation votes. Thanks to ClownXX1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Devour the King 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to you 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Guzalien Pride 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to the old man, who talks about the gods 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Jiazhao King Pinfu 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Shiwengao 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Muayang's 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Minecraft 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to 123 recommendation votes. Thanks to Dragon 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to King Shine Ming 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Shulayan's How 2 recommendation votes. Chapter 29 Pure. Tony flew to another place to kill monsters. The roar of the rock singer in his suit resounded in the street. It is estimated that Tony added an external speaker function to his suit in order to allow himself to appear with BGM. The surrounding skeletons saw that Link had disrupted the martial arts show and suddenly remembered that their mission was to cause destruction, so they picked up sticks, squeaked and made a tooth grinding sound of bone friction, and surrounded Link and Rogers. Rogers responded seriously, "Link, let's work together." "Okay," Link said, and then took Rogers' vibranium round shield with one hand while he was not paying attention. Rogers exclaimed, "Link, what are you doing?" Link shouted, "Lend me your shield." He had been eyeing this shield for a long time. After grabbing it, he happily spun the round shield in circles. The weight and material made Link like it more and more. He threw it out suddenly, and the round shield spun and hit the skeletons away, and the round shield bounced back into Link's hand. Link rushed into the crowd of skeletons, holding a shield, and did nothing else but use his shield to counter block. Clank, 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 clank. He knocked over a group of skeletons with his round shield. After having a good time, he returned the shield to Rogers, who looked depressed. Link picked up his two swords and continued to rush into the enemy's nest to kill them. After finishing a wave, he detonated the bomb, stepped on the shield, and flew into the sky, surfing to another place, and continued to fight. The blood moon in the Marvel world is different from that in the game. It caused the monsters to surge overnight, especially various night monsters, which emerged in an endless stream. Although Link killed heartily, he couldn't help but feel anxious in the fierce battle. Once the blood moon appeared, various monsters appeared in the world. It was okay once, but if it continued, it would be a disaster for the world. Will the ordinary people in this world have no peace for a day if Ganon is not sealed? Link felt a heavy sense of responsibility on his shoulders. But when Link was concentrating on fighting, he didn't notice it. Reporters who heard the news and rushed here captured him, Rogers, and Tony. A reporter was stunned as he watched Link surfing in the air on his shield. He stuttered, "Who is this boy?" The burly man who was filming said, "Well, I saw it clearly. It's a 14 or 15-year-old blonde boy. Well, his ears are like elves. A new age superhero? Captain America second?" The reporter shouted, "Go to the live broadcast. This is a big news." Link was extremely skilled and efficient in dealing with these skeletons. He quickly smashed the two alloy swords given by Tony. With his bare hands, Link had to use bombs to bombard them. Although the bombs were very weak and could only blow the skeletons apart, it was enough. Link kept running, which attracted the attention of the surrounding skeletons and surrounded them. Then Link dropped the bomb and detonated it, separating the skulls from their bodies. Then Link rushed forward and crushed the skulls one by one. This was more efficient. When Link used bombs endlessly, the goddess Hylia suddenly murmured in his mind, "Use bombs 100 times. Brave practice. Complete. Master bomb skills. Get rewards." Link was excited. Mifa. Enhanced bomb ability. Link was so angry that he almost vomited blood. What can bomb enhancement do? What's the use of increasing 1 point of damage to 2 points? Link sighed. I thought I could get some useful skills or increase my health and strength before fighting the Cyclops, but it turned out to be just a useless skill enhancement. He naturally couldn't quibble about the gift of Goddess Hylia, so he had to vent his dissatisfaction on the skeleton. Picking up a skeleton's arm and waving it with a whizzing sound, Link used the skeleton's arm as a whip and waved it back and forth and continued to fight. The fierce battle lasted until 11 o'clock in the evening. With the efforts of Link, Tony, Rogers, and Natasha, they actually destroyed all the night monsters born from the blood moon. Link killed the most skeletons and consumed the most physical strength. He came to Rogers and Natasha panting and asked Natasha, "Where are the troops? Why aren't there a large number of troops to clean up the monsters?" Natasha was also exhausted, but under Rogers' deliberate protection, Natasha consumed the least physical strength. She replied, "The army had no idea that the blood moon would refresh so many monsters in the city. The main force was ambushed next to the camps of several powerful monsters, waiting for the monsters to revive and destroy them. So the city is empty instead." Link was stunned. "Oh, right, the Cyclops. Natasha, take me to the place where the Cyclops resurrected." Natasha smiled and said, "I will follow your orders, brave man." In the battle tonight, Link used all his skills and exposed his powerful strength. Natasha saw it all. Link's back, protecting the weak, risking his life, and rushing into the battle to kill the enemy, also left a deep impression on Natasha. No matter who it is, once they spend a long time with Link, they will feel the brightness and sense of security that naturally emanates from Link. Natasha has met countless people. She is the world's top agent. She can find out a person's background, temperament, and personality by just chatting with others or taking a look at them. As for Link, even the slightly weathered Black Widow has never seen such a person before. He seems to be a brave boy in a fairy tale or an epic hero in ancient legends. As a person with rich emotions, Link is too pure. Natasha is a woman with many secrets and complicated experiences, so she is easily attracted by Link's simple and clean temperament and develops a good impression. Natasha thought to herself, "What a pity, it would be better if you were 10 years older." Natasha was worried. "Link, you've been exhausted. Can you handle the Cyclops?" Link wiped the sweat off his forehead. His hair was a little messy. Although he was panting, Link was in good spirits. He said, "Take me. I'm fine." Natasha said, "Okay." Then she smashed a car beside her with a shot, opened the door, and waved to Link and Rogers. "Get in the car, two heroes." The two got in the car and drove towards the woods outside the city, leaving a mess and ruins all over the city. Tony saw Link and the others driving away from a distance, wondering, where are these guys going? Just as he was about to catch up, his face suddenly turned pale, veins spread on his neck, and Tony almost fell from the air. Tony shouted, "Jarvis, go home." Tony panted hard. "Is it palladium poisoning? I'll go back and try other materials." Well, damn. He didn't have the time to care about Rogers and Link anymore. At this moment, Hawkeye still had his hands on his hips, his bloodshot eyes staring at the base of the wall. He couldn't help but yawn and said angrily, "Why haven't these two stone monsters come out yet?" Thank you for the brilliant Aquarius Heart 1 recommendation vote. Thank you for the Dark Star Drac 5 recommendation votes. Thank you for the Lost 3 recommendation votes. Thank you for Cleeks 5 recommendation votes. Thank you for Yun Mengan 5 recommendation votes. Thank you for Chunai 3 recommendation votes. Thank you for the Handsome Attitude 3 recommendation votes. Thank you Camilla 12 recommendation votes. Thank you for V Magnetic Levitation Blog 3 recommendation votes. Thank you for TZWTL2 recommendation votes. Thank you for Cami 95 recommendation votes. Thank you for Let's Go 2 recommendation votes. Thank you for RHPK9 recommendation votes. Thank you for Inake Haruki 1 recommendation vote. Thank you for 201807060043333741 recommendation votes. Thank you for Book Friends 1609221046215063 recommendation votes. Thank you for Huang Deos Ish 6 recommendation votes. Thank you for Rima Balloon 8 recommendation votes. Thanks to Puginan for 10 recommendations. Thanks to Zland for 2 recommendations. Thanks to Haha Jeshi for 2 recommendations. Thanks to Handi Yufenglui for 4 recommendations. Thanks to Ziokerd for 5 recommendations. Thanks to Bookfriend 160105205824644441 recommendations. Chapter 30 Battle with the Cyclops. Link and his 2 companions came to a forest outside the city. From a distance, they could see the traces of destruction in this peaceful forest. Rogers frowned and could even smell the special smell of the bombardment, which still remained. Natasha recalled the scene at that time before. Even though the army was well prepared, when the Cyclops appeared, the combat effectiveness it showed still caught the military off guard, and many people died. "Link, you have to be more careful." Link sat in the co-pilot seat, and Rogers, who looked a little aggrieved, was sitting behind him holding a shield. Natasha didn't know why Rogers joined in the fun, but her mission was to assist and protect Rogers. Natasha could only sigh. "Hero of World War II. It will be very dangerous later, so you should protect yourself first." Several people arrived near the destination, got off the car in advance, and walked to the monster resurrection point. Link summoned a bow and quiver from the weapon space with a rustle. This was specially customized by Zelda according to Link's usage habits, and Link had not used it many times. Rogers saw the Cyclops lying on the ground, still as huge as a hill. Even though he was prepared, he was still shocked. He also had the old man's usual thought in his heart, alas, each generation is worse than the previous one. This world is far more chaotic than during World War II. Natasha crouched down and asked softly, "Link, how are you going to fight?" Link said in a deep voice, "Sneak attack." Then he crouched down without saying anything, sneaked over, placed 2 bombs next to the Cyclops' body, and then climbed to the Cyclops' stinky chest. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. On the Cyclops' neck, there were 2 weapons, the Royal Sword and the Royal Spear. Link was delighted. He had fought so many monsters before, but he didn't have any equipment, except the skeleton's crackling bone arms. He had been looking forward to whether the Cyclops was carrying any equipment. The 2 Royal Swords and the Royal Spear gave Link an unexpected surprise. If equipment could be dropped, then it was possible to obtain the special fruits of the Hyrule continent. Link put his bow and arrow behind his back, sneaked over, and grabbed two weapons despite the Cyclops' snoring. He put the royal spear behind his back and held the royal greatsword in his hand. Rogers and Natasha hid in the bushes to observe Link's movements. Rogers was puzzled. What is Link doing? I feel like he is going to hit the Cyclops' head with the greatsword. That shouldn't be possible. It's too reckless. He hit the Cyclops' head with the greatsword. My god. He really did it. Link summoned all the strength in his body, holding the greatsword and spinning, accumulating strength, and then swung it in the air with all his strength, drawing an arc, and the blade suddenly hit the Cyclops' face. With a smash, the Cyclops' skin was broken, leaving a bloody mark on his chin. Link tilted his head, activated the iron wings, and flew up with a shake of the wings. The Cyclops howled and turned over, opened the super big eyes that could only crush Link to death, and saw Link floating in the air. One eye cannot express emotions, and the Cyclops' single eye looks dull, but Link and even Natasha and Rogers who are hiding in the distance can feel the Cyclops' almost barbaric and terrible anger spreading. The Cyclops just stood up, and before he could stand firm, Link detonated two bombs. Boom. Boom. 2 times. The Cyclops fell to the ground again. Although Link's bombs were not powerful, the shockwave was not small. The 2 strengthened bombs were enough to blow down a mountain like Cyclops. Link also let go of his wings and fell down suddenly. In the air, he took advantage of the falling momentum and swung the royal sword. He shouted and chopped down vertically from the face of the Cyclops to the chest, abdomen, and thighs. There was a deep blood mark, and the blood spurted wildly, dyeing Link's body scarlet. Although they have fought countless times in the game, the Cyclops in the Hyrule continent will not bleed or have wounds. But in the Marvel world, the Cyclops instantly became more real, and Link's battle became more bloody. Just now, Link's strength was temporarily exhausted, and he moved slowly. The Cyclops stretched out his foot and stepped over. There was no time to take out the round shield. Link directly wrapped his body with iron wings and took the giant's trampling. The iron wings exploded, and Link vomited blood and rolled out. 5 hearts. 2 of them were gone in an instant. Natasha covered her mouth and looked at Link worriedly. Link's body was small, and facing such a huge and terrifying Cyclops, anyone who saw it would feel a sense of suicidal tragedy. The two watched Link quickly prop up, throw a bomb on the ground, step on the shield to detonate, and blow up into the sky. In the air, Link bent his bow and pulled the arrow, and the bullet time started. Time suddenly slowed down. Link shot an arrow and hit the Cyclops' eyes. With a snap, the Cyclops' head was raised back and hit the ground again. Link stepped on the shield, slid to the ground, held the big sword, gathered all his strength, and threw it directly. The big sword exploded on the Cyclops. Rogers was so excited that his blood boiled. He rushed up and shouted, "Link, I'll help you." Link turned around. "Want to help me? Then lend me your shield." While Link and Rogers were talking, the Cyclops sat up and punched down. Link quickly turned around and raised his shield to greet it. Pop. The guard's shield also exploded. Link was knocked into the sky again, rolled on the ground for more than 10 times, stood up staggeringly, rubbed his head. Oops, I had too much fun when I was brushing skeletons, and the durability of the guard's shield was worn out. Link was immediately angry. "Tony, didn't you say that this shield was very high?" Far away at home, Tony, who was exhausted by palladium poisoning, yawned and muttered, "I don't know where Link is. No wonder his equipment breaks down so quickly." Tony recalled Link's act of surfing in the air on a shield. "I guess no shield can withstand your tossing. I'll find a way to find some new materials to make a shield for this kid." The Cyclops roared furiously, and he just took a nap. Suddenly, an ignorant brat ran over and beat him up. The Cyclops' anger made his eyes bloodshot. His eyeballs were strong, and he could actually take Link's full strength arrow, but he was still seriously injured, and his whites were full of bloodshot. He rubbed his eyelids and sat up, intending to step on Link to death. But at this moment, Rogers rushed up and shouted, "Hey, big monster, come and attack me." Rogers picked up a stone and smashed it at the Cyclops. At this moment, he had to stand up and help Link buy time to recover. Rogers looked at the Cyclops' cold gaze, which had already shifted to his body. He suddenly became stiff and murmured, "Link, how dare you attack such a monster?" Rolling on his back, crying, not reconciled, In the recommendation rankings, I'm only 40 collections away from the first place. I can crush him in all aspects with the remaining data. I'm so unwilling. Today is Thursday, please step up and support me. To celebrate the collection exceeding 1000, I will update 3 times today. Don't send red envelopes. Thank you to the book Bonely and Pride, 500 starting coins for support. Thank you to the book Friend Final Decisive Battle Humanoid for 500 starting coins. Thank you to the book Friend 201807062004333744 for 100 starting coins. Thank you to the book Friend U for 100 starting coins. Thank you to the Lost Lioran for 3 recommendation votes. Thank you to the Wandering Adventurer for 3 recommendation votes. Thank you to Ni GGR for 3 recommendation votes. Thank you to the Puppet Candidate for 2 recommendation votes. Thank you to Mr. Sansu for 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to OrangerFly1231 for the recommendation votes. Thanks to Handsome Attitude for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to SSGSNLZ for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Lilin Tatian for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Fizamo for 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to Guzeline Pride for 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to the young man, who often reads novels for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Muayangs for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Shulayan Sao for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Zixio for 7 recommendation votes. Thanks to Shuayazar Retalian 200k for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to ClownXX for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to 123 for the recommendation votes. Thanks to Minecrafter for 2 recommendation votes. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 31 Magnetic Grabber. Link saw Rogers rushing up and shouted hurriedly, "You attract the attention of the Cyclops. I will deal damage." The Cyclops was not very smart and chased Rogers around. Link looked left and right, ran to a tree, tore off a piece of bark, jumped up suddenly, threw a bomb to detonate it, stepped on the bark, and flew into the sky. Boom. 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 3 times, the bark exploded, and Link also flew to the top of the Cyclops' head. Link stood firm, and saw the huge eyeball turned up and saw Link. Link smiled, picked up the guard sword and smashed it hard. Oh. The Cyclops howled, and slapped his head with both hands desperately, trying to knock Link down. Link's body swayed, and he was almost thrown. He reached out, and grabbed the Cyclops' ear, swinging it back and forth, to dodge the attacking arm, and then shouted to Rogers and Natasha on the ground, "Attack his eyes." Natasha came out, took out her pistol, and shot. Pop. The Cyclops' eyeball was attacked again, and he quickly covered his eyes with one hand. Link took the opportunity to jump onto the Cyclops' head again, and suddenly jumped down, holding the guard's greatsword with both hands. Link shouted loudly, using all his strength to penetrate the greatsword into the Cyclops' palm. The force had not yet dissipated and inserted it into the Cyclops' eye. Link fell from the air, and the Cyclops slapped him randomly, and happened to slap the direction where Link fell. Link's face was bitter, and he crossed his hands to block in front of him. With only 3 bars of blood left, he probably couldn't withstand a slap from the Cyclops. Rogers ran over and shouted, "Give you a shield," and hurriedly threw the vibranium round shield over. Natasha estimated the speed and said anxiously, "No, it's too late." Seeing that Link was about to be slapped away and turned into a meteor in the sky, it seemed that there was no way out, but Link was stronger when facing a strong opponent. The more dangerous the situation, the more brave and alert he was. He gritted his teeth and a bomb appeared in his arms. Link closed his eyes and murmured, "I really don't want to do this." It exploded with a puff. Before being slapped to death by the Cyclops, Link chose to blow himself up in advance. Ugh. Natasha and Rogers were shocked to see Link's heroic act and rushed to the place where Link fell. Rogers rushed over and grabbed the falling Link. Link crashed into Rogers' chest. Rogers groaned and felt a slight sweet taste in his throat. After fighting for so long, Rogers was injured for the first time by friendly forces. Rogers struggled to put Link down, knelt on the ground, covered his chest and coughed, and whispered, "My ribs seem to be broken." "Sorry." Link's limbs were also trembling. He knelt on the ground, patted Roger's shoulder. "You are so reliable." Link's hair tie was undone at this moment. His hair was messy, and he looked very embarrassed. Now the Cyclops has become a blind giant, reaching out his hands and groping around, very frantic, and roaring continuously. The voice of the goddess Hylia sounded again in Link's heart. Complete the brave training, destroy 5 solid weapons, gain skills. Magnetic grabber. Link stood up on his knees. Natasha ran over and saw that Rogers and Link were both injured and said, "Let's leave first. We have blinded this guy's eyes, so he is not a threat to us." Link shook his head. "We must kill him." Link looked at the Cyclops. There were still people living nearby. If a Cyclops who was crazy because he couldn't see anything was allowed to walk around blindly, it would cause great damage. Link glanced at the blood moon. It was 12 o'clock, the strongest time of Ganon's curse. Natasha said, "But your body." With Natasha's support, Link looked around and found the car they were riding in. Thinking of his new skills, Link thought to himself, "Okay, let's do it." He stretched out his hand, aimed at the car, and activated his telekinesis. Natasha opened her mouth slightly. "Link, your strange skills again." She looked at the car and floated into the air. Natasha was already accustomed to Link's various strange skills, but Link still felt absurd when he used telekinesis to make a car break free from gravity and fly into the air. Link's arms sank, and he immediately realized that the extent of his control over metal was mainly limited by his own strength. The greater his strength, the heavier the metal he lifted. This car was the limit of Link's current strength. Link controlled the floating car and came to the Cyclops. He spun around and threw the car like a meteor hammer, hitting the Cyclops' head and knocking it down. Link also fell down because of his unstable center of gravity. Rogers and Natasha were speechless, not knowing how Link did it. The Cyclops was at a loss, roaring fiercely. He couldn't see anything, but could only feel something hitting his head, so he held his head and rolled around. It was like an earthquake around him, shaking Rogers and Natasha so much that they couldn't stand steadily. Link controlled the floating car again and crashed into the Cyclops. Bang! The Cyclops roared wildly. Link was exhausted again and fell to his knees, panting with exhaustion. At this time, Natasha said, "Link, you're too tired to swing the car around like that. Let the car fall from a high altitude to hit this monster." Link waved and gave Natasha a thumbs up. He lifted the vehicle high, then let go of the car, and it fell down with a bang, hitting the Cyclops' face. Ouch. The Cyclops roared desperately, grabbed the broken car that had fallen beside him, and threw it towards Natasha and Rogers. Natasha's face changed. She had just spoken loudly, and the Cyclops noticed her location. Rogers suddenly held up a shield to block Natasha, and Link also made a quick decision and hurriedly used magnetism to absorb the broken car. Bang! The shield and the broken car collided. Although the vibranium round shield had an excellent shock absorption effect, the Cyclops still knocked Rogers away with one throw. But his resistance worked, resisting part of the force of the broken car, allowing Link to use magnets to absorb the broken car and intercept the broken car's momentum. Rogers threw the round shield aside, panting heavily, and muttered, "Did Link do it with a shield? I'll ask him for advice another day." Natasha stepped forward and pulled Rogers up. Rogers looked at Link's back and said, "We can only rely on him now." Link mustered up his remaining strength, kept lifting the broken car, and then threw it down, aiming at the Cyclops' head. In Link's relentless attack, the Cyclops' head was broken and bleeding. No matter where he rolled, in the dark, a huge iron block would hit his face. At this moment, the Cyclops was dying. Crack. Being destroyed by Link, the broken car disintegrated before the Cyclops died. If you like this book, please add it to your collection. There is one more chapter before 12 o'clock. Please add it to your collection. Please recommend it. Please. I'm only a little bit away from the first place in the collection. Thank you Minecrafter100 for your support. Thank you Bookfriend2018070043333741 for your recommendation. Thank you for the recommendation votes from the tail repair car. Thank you for the recommendation votes from the big head. Thank you for the recommendation votes from Cami95. Thanks to the book friend user Meng for 4 recommendations. Thanks to the Darkstar Drac for 3 recommendations. Thanks to the book friend Broken Wings for you for 7 recommendations. Thanks to Camilla for 12 recommendations. Thanks to the book friend 201701250333284002 recommendations. Thanks to one person for 4 recommendations. Thanks to the street man for 10 recommendations. Thanks to the great gentleman Lance for 3 recommendations. Thanks to the rookie version of At for 2 recommendations. Thanks to Fugsy Kim for 12 recommendations. Thanks to the book friend Luo Zion Sen for 2 recommendations. Thanks to the Old Man of Gods and Talk for 3 recommendations. Thanks to Spitfire for 9 recommendations. Thanks to the Ancient World for 2 recommendations. Thanks to the book friend Super Picker for 7 recommendations. Thanks to Halex Girl for 2 recommendations. Thanks to Jonton00003 recommendations. Thanks to DreamY for 1 recommendation. Chapter 30 to obtain the Life Durian. All efforts were in vain. Roger sighed. If that car had held on a little longer, maybe it would have won. But Link was very calm. He calmly took out his bow and arrow, put the arrow on the bow, and shot the arrow. Then he took out another arrow and shot it. The Cyclops no longer had the strength to resist. Even if he knew the direction of Link's arrow, he couldn't attack it. Link shot arrow after arrow at this living target. The Cyclops' screams became weaker and weaker until Link had shot all his 10 arrows and stopped. At this moment, the Cyclops' face was full of arrows, and he was breathing in more than he was breathing out. The bow in Link's hand was almost out of durability. He threw it on the ground, and it exploded with a snap. Link walked over slowly to finish off the Cyclops. Rogers hurriedly threw the vibranium round shield in his hand and shouted, "Link, be careful." Link was very tired now. Rogers was worried that, if Link walked over, he would be crushed to death by the Cyclops, who was in a state of last breath. But if he rushed forward to kill the Cyclops, he would inevitably be suspected of stealing the credit of the other person, so he just threw the vibranium round shield to Link. Link caught it with his backhand and smiled. "Is it for me?" Rogers frowned. I'll lend it to you." Natasha shrugged and said, "It seems that Link likes your shield very much." Rogers muttered, "I like it too." He knew that Link was always spying on his shield, so he decided to be more careful in the future. Link picked up the Guardian Greatsword that had fallen to the ground before, and was dejected. The durability of the Guardian Greatsword was almost used up. Link missed his Exorcist sword, which was strong, handsome, and glowing. Link dragged the Guardian Greatsword to the Cyclops' head. Using his last bit of strength, he swung. The guard's greatsword shattered, and the airflow rushed Link's golden hair. The Cyclops roared in despair, and suddenly exploded into a cloud of black smoke. Link stood there quietly, with his hair disheveled, and his awe-inspiring temperament caught the eyes of Rogers and Natasha. Natasha exclaimed, "Link is just like the hero in a night novel." Rogers also said, "Yes." When the two were sighing at Link's transcendent temperament at this time, they saw Link jumping up happily, like a child. Natasha wondered, did the Cyclops explode some treasure? Rogers said, "Let's go and take a look." Then he took 2 steps. Natasha and Rogers, Black Widow and Captain America, 2 people who had experienced many storms, were actually frozen in the face of this scene. The tragic scene that happened before was imprinted in their minds, and Link drew out the fear that had just passed not long ago from the shadows. Because Link took a durian, Rogers hurriedly held his breath and barely shouted, "Link, what did you find?" Link happily ran over holding his beloved life durian, laughing and shouting, "Look, what did I find?" Natasha and Rogers hurriedly stepped back and shouted, "Don't get close to us." Link found that the 2 people's fearful eyes were focused on the life durian in his arms, and couldn't help but smile and said, "It's okay. This kind of durian is special, called life durian, and it only has a sweet and refreshing fragrance. If you don't believe it, smell it." Natasha and Rogers hurriedly stepped back again, thinking, no wonder Link loves durian so much. It turns out that his sense of smell is problematic. Link saw the 2 people resisting, and couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. He thought, this is a life durian. Even if there is only one, it can make a dish that instantly fills up the blood volume, and adds 4 more blood bars. These two people are so scared. It's really a waste of natural resources. Roger sniffed, a little confused. No, this durian does not have the strange smell of ordinary durian. The two came over and looked at the durian in Link's arms. Sure enough, as Link said, this durian looked very transparent, as if it was made of cream, and exuded a fresh fragrance. Natasha was surprised and said, "So you once said that the food that can save lives is this?" Link took a deep breath and said obsessedly, "I like this taste. This is a real durian. The durian in your world is really terrible." Rogers and Natasha looked at Link's happy childish face, which looked very cute. Link has always been cool and calm, and this is the first time he has acted so childishly. Link smiled and said, "Let's go back. I want to do research with Zelda to see if we can make this kind of life durian reproduce in this world. Maybe there are seeds inside the durian." Natasha, let's drive back. Natasha pointed to the broken car fragments that were ravaged by Link and said, "I can't drive this thing." Rogers looked at the surrounding wilderness and said worriedly, "This is bad. We can only walk back or wait for vehicles to pass by on the side of the road." Link looked at Rogers in surprise and said, "No, I'll call a taxi." Rogers looked at Link fiddling with his mobile phone in shock, his mouth wide open. Amazing technology. The phone can be so small and there is no need to plug it in. Then he looked at Natasha with a confused look on his face and whispered, "Didn't they say that Link is from another world? How come he is so skilled in using the technological products of Earth?" Natasha replied, "Maybe he is young and has a strong ability to accept new things." Roger said, "But he has been asleep for many years like me. He should be more than 100 years old." Natasha and stopped talking. Link asked Pepper to contact a car to pick them up. Although the city is in chaos now and taxi companies have stopped working, but with the power of Star Company, it is still easy to find someone to pick up Link and others. After the three returned to the city, Natasha and Rogers left. Link took a connecting flight and returned to Tony's home. He was not afraid of being pricked. He kept holding his precious durian in his arms for fear that it would bump into something. Back at Tony's house, Jarvis' voice came from the room. "Welcome back, Link." Link nodded. Tony was seen sitting on the sofa decadently, and the deafening sound of the concert sounded on the TV. Seeing Link coming back, Tony lowered his voice and forced a smile. "Welcome back, little hero. Zelda is feeling a little uncomfortable. Go and keep her company." Seeing that Tony looked a little off, Link immediately thought that it was the effect of palladium poisoning. He was about to find an excuse to tell Tony the secret of new element and new energy, but when he heard Tony say that Zelda was feeling unwell, he hurriedly said, "Don't worry, Tony, things will get better. I'll tell you later," and ran to Zelda's room. Tony had just been looking for a substitute for palladium, but there was no suitable and safe solution, and he couldn't help but feel exhausted. But with the monsters in the world of Hyrule and the betrayal of his close collaborators, Tony couldn't give up the sense of security brought by the arc reactor and Iron Man, even if it was a temporary solution. Tony cheered up. "Who cares? I'm Tony Stark. I just don't believe that there is no substitute for palladium. Book friends who haven't collected it, please add it to your collection. Thank you all for your support. The gap to the first place is really very close. Come on, everyone. Also, I have a question. Can you see my cover? I uploaded the cover half a month ago, but it still doesn't show up on the client. I don't know why. The cover I uploaded is a picture of Link in shy women's clothing. Can you see it on the client?" Thank you to Bookfriendrisky 560 for the 2000 Kidian coins reward support. Thank you Khalid2 for the recommendation. Thank you SSGSNLZ1 for the recommendation. Thank you I'm Therefore I'm 2 for the recommendation. Thank you RHPK9 for the recommendation. Thank you Bookfriend No Freedom Restrictions 9 for the recommendation. Thank you Tabris09044 for the recommendation. Thank you Dadaolon HUI Shianson 3 for the recommendation. Thank you I Can't Grab Your Name 6 for the recommendation. Thank you I'm BingZH82 for the recommendation. Thank you Primordial Tide 5 for the recommendation. Thanks to the gods, the pattern cannot be typed out. 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Bookfriend 201806 to 9190326435. 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Arcane Destroyer 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Supreme and Anhuang Tae 5 recommendation votes. Thanks to Bookfriend 151,207,521,291 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Midnight Blood Thief 8 recommendation votes. Thanks to Jia's How Kingpin Fu 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Changshan D 5 recommendation votes. Chapter 33 Tony proclaims. Link hurried to the bedroom, which was not even lit, and heard Zelda's painful gasps in the dim room. Link took a deep breath, put the life-durian aside, then tiptoed to Zelda's bedside, touched Zelda's wet and hot forehead, squatted down and whispered, "Princess, how do you feel?" Zelda opened her big eyes, looked at Link with a forced smile, and said, "I'm fine, I'm healthy, just a little abnormal. I feel Ganon's ability is slowly getting stronger. I am very worried." Link grabbed Zelda's hands with both hands and smiled. "It's okay, don't be afraid of anything, I will protect you." Zelda trembled and took a deep breath. "I must recover my strength as soon as possible." After dawn, the blood moon disappeared. Link ignored his injuries and guarded Zelda all night until her body temperature slowly returned to normal. Only then did he feel relieved and fainted beside the bed. Instead, Zelda carried Link to the bed and settled him down. The roles of the patient and the caregiver were exchanged. Zelda stroked Link's face. Her physical discomfort had disappeared with the disappearance of the blood moon, and her mentality returned to normal. Looking at Link's tired sleeping face, Zelda thought, "What kind of hard battle did you go through yesterday?" Then she got dressed and went to the laboratory. Early in the morning, she saw Tony directing Damie to work, and the workbench was in a mess. Zelda walked down and asked, "Mr. Tony, didn't you sleep all night?" Because Tony's eyes were bloodshot at the moment, as if he had been drinking all night. Tony saw Zelda coming over, so he sat on the workbench and responded, "Oh, I'm looking for disruptive new energy solutions. In the future, people all over the world will benefit from my creation. How can I let sleep delay such an important thing? As for, are you feeling better?" Zelda nodded. "Thank you for your concern, Tony." At first, Zelda wanted to call Tony Teacher Tony, just like she called Banner, but when Tony heard Zelda call him Teacher sweetly, goosebumps appeared, so he didn't allow Zelda to call him Teacher, and asked her to call him by his name like Link. Tony said, "Where's Link?" Zelda smiled and said, "Link took care of me all night and just went to bed now." Tony smiled and said, "This guy's really energetic." Then he asked Jarvis to turn on the TV, which was broadcasting the news. What a coincidence that it was the battle that happened in New York yesterday. Zelda looked over and saw a clip of Iron Man flying through the air conducting air-to-ground artillery strikes. A battle between a man in a dark blue tights suit and a woman in a black tights suit, and a clip of her beloved Link flying through the sky on a shield. Zelda's face changed. The influence of the blood moon in this world is so serious. Tony pointed at Link on TV and said, "This kid has become famous. People all over the world are asking, who is this blonde boy who fights side by side with the great Iron Man?" That is, me. Although the battle suit is made of gold titanium alloy instead of steel, but I like this name. Tony spread his hands. "Just like the media named me Iron Man, they also gave your Link a name." On TV, the host said seriously, "As for who this blonde boy is, there is no clear source of information yet. Some people speculate that he is an elf flying in the dream forest, because this blonde boy has a pair of strange long ears." That's right. Tony snapped his fingers. "Elf. I don't know if Link is satisfied with this nickname, but he must learn to accept it, because he has to accept it, whether he likes it or not. The media is so arrogant, they will give you an evaluation at will, and not let you question it. Link's battle in New York last night was so eye-catching that he even overwhelmed the hero in Captain America's costume on the field, and became the focus. Only Tony Stark, the king of topics, could steal some of the heat from Link. Tony shrugged. "Link should feel regretful. Now is not the time to sleep in. I'm going to hold a press conference to clarify the so-called Iron Man. Zelda, Pepper and I will leave first. You help me watch. If you need anything, just tell Jarvis." "Okay." Zelda nodded. 2 hours later. To be honest, I'm not cut out to be a hero. I have many character flaws. But I'm Iron Man. Suddenly, the whole audience was in turmoil, and Zelda, who was sitting on the sofa watching, couldn't help but say, "Turn down the volume a little, don't disturb Link." Jarvis said, "Okay, Princess Zelda." Zelda was confused. "Jarvis, why do you call me like that?" Jarvis said, "According to the data analysis, this is the most suitable title for you." Zelda smiled and said, "Just call me Zelda." Then she continued to look at the TV. Zelda looked at Tony on the screen. Amidst the noise and flashing lights, Tony pursed his lips tightly. Zelda could even see that Tony was ready to die. If Link was present at this moment, he would probably sigh. The Marvel world has just begun its glorious prelude, but he was still sleeping soundly. Jarvis thoughtfully played some white noise such as the sound of flowing water and the clattering of leaves to help Link sleep. Tony's self-exposure caused an uproar around the world, but this was not the end. The reporters were greedy and continued to ask Tony about the elf boy. Being interrogated by countless microphones and under the gazes of countless people eager for explosive news, Tony cleared his throat, and suddenly a malicious smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and he said loudly, "As for the blonde boy you are particularly concerned about, yes, I know him. He is my friend. His name is Link." Zelda screamed. "How did Tony mention Link?" Jarvis's calm and gentle voice came. "You have to get used to Mr. Tony's unconventional behavior." At night, Link woke up and saw Zelda's delicate face in the dark. Zelda handed him a glass of water. Link sat up, drank it in one breath, and asked, "Princess, why don't you turn on the light?" Zelda blushed and said, "I forgot." In fact, Zelda returned to the room and kept looking at Link's face in a daze. It was already night without noticing, but Zelda was embarrassed to say it. Link woke up and his energy was restored. Except for being very hungry, his body was in great shape. The two went downstairs and planned to find something to eat. Then they saw a black man sitting in the living room. Zelda frowned. "Mr. Nick, when did you come in?" Zelda was a little angry. Tony left her at home, and someone broke into the house without her knowledge. Tony would think Zelda brought a stranger into my house without permission, and get angry. Special thanks to book friends Kuang Shere Ocean, Zinau Shadow, Galzi who loves to eat grapefruit, Perfunctory. You may not know that I'm currently updating 2 books, and the other one Infinite Liquid Gold Magic Suit is still serialized, but because of limited experience and the critical period of Zelda's first recommendation of invading Marvel, the Liquid Gold has been out of service for many days. And these 4 book friends have been insisting on voting, rewarding, and patronizing my book Infinite Liquid Gold Magic Suit during the period of suspension. Thank you very much. I'm very ashamed. But please rest assured that Infinite Liquid Gold Magic Suit will not be abandoned. Even if the results are not good, it will give everyone a perfect ending. Thank you book friend Final Battle Humanoid for 500 starting coins. Thank you book friend Devouring the King for 100 starting coins. Thank you book friend Meng Lionson for 100 starting coins. Thanks to Chiba 11,122,222,222,222 for the recommendation votes. Thanks to book friend 1403181902146712 for the recommendation votes. Thanks to the Lost Lioran for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to the Handsome Attitude for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Mr. Sansu, 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to Ski5602 for the recommendation votes. Thanks to Yu Zhaomeng for 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to Zunayunian for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Glasses, WooGKO for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Emozifi for 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to the Final Battle of Humanoids for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to ClownXX for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Guzali NGO for 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to SSGSNLZ for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to you for 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to Lance the Great Gentleman for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to the young man, who often reads novels for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Lu Oyensen for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Yuanan for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Chao Iwu for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Yun Mengan for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks for Broken Wings for you 7 votes. Thanks for Young People Do Not Know the Taste of Sorrow 13 votes. Thanks for Fake Minister of the God 4 votes. Thanks to Bookfriend 15120708252212913 votes. Chapter 34 hahaha. Zelda frowned and asked, Mr. Nick, you're not doing this right. At this time, Tony also returned home with 3 boxes of pizza. As soon as he entered the living room, he saw Nick Fury's bald head. He was stunned for a while and said to Link, there's a thief in the house. Link, close the door. Throwed her in. Nick's face darkened. Now he had a headache when he heard the word Dorian. Nick said, Mr. Tony Stark, do you really think you are a superhero? The remarks you made at the press conference today were really shocking. I'm the director of SHIELD. Are you interested in joining an organization? The Avengers? Tony's face changed. Half an hour later, the 3 of them sat on the sofa. Tony and Nick finished talking about everything they needed to talk about. Nick threw his windbreaker away and left. Tony's eyes were focused on Link. Link was eating happily. The 3 boxes of pizza Tony brought back were all finished by him. Tony shrugged, although I have seen it more than once, I'm still curious. How strong is your digestion ability? Do you have a second stomach? Link blinked, his throat moved, and he swallowed the last bite of food. He asked, have you finished talking? Tony nodded, I'm done. I'm really not interested in joining that organization. Oh, the Avengers. He looked disdainful, and Link looked at him without saying anything. If Link didn't know the plot, he would really be fooled by Tony. Tony asked, Link, that guy named Nick, I guess he also asked you about this? Link shook his head. That's true. Tony nodded. Fury must know that you are a kind person, and there is no need to negotiate with you. When he has difficulties, he will come to you directly, and you will definitely not refuse. Look, he eats people like you to death. Then Tony looked at Zelda and said, Zelda, if you meet this kind of idiot who doesn't know manners and breaks into other people's homes next time, just let Amy pierce him with an electric drill. Link took the glass of juice handed by Zelda and drank it in one breath. He wanted to find a reason to tell Tony about the new element his father had left him. He decided to create a coincidence, come to the miniature exhibition stand, and then say oh, in confusion, and then say to Tony, look, isn't this thing a little strange? Then guide Tony to discover the new element himself. Link didn't plan to follow the plot. Otherwise, it would be unkind to wait until Tony was driven to despair by palladium poisoning, and then tell Tony the truth. After he had distributed his family property everywhere, become a good person, and let himself fend for himself in the midst of luxury, he was about to carry out his plan. At this time, Tony suddenly leaned on the sofa and said, the big green vegetable you met in Brazil. He appeared again at Calvary University in Virginia today, and had a fight with the army. You should be interested in this. Zelda exclaimed in a low voice, Teacher? The military has found Teacher Banner again. Tony raised his eyebrows when he heard Zelda call Bruce Banner teacher, and said, you are such a studious girl. Although I also admire Bruce Banner's erudition and attainments, in terms of knowledge and scope, he is still a little bit behind me, but he can still be your teacher. Then he took out his mobile phone, called up the footage of the Hulk fighting at Calvary University, and showed it to Zelda and Link. Zelda's teacher Banner has killed many people, and is now missing. How are you going to deal with it? I can't help with this matter. I can't interfere in military affairs. Link said, Banner is on his way to New York. There will be another big war next. Tony asked in confusion, how can you be so sure? Link looked at Tony with a serious look and said, my premonition is always accurate. So don't worry. Tony frowned, and he felt the comfort in Link's words. The next day, Link and Zelda took a special plane to New York. New York and New Yorkers are made of steel. Countless natural disasters and man-made disasters cannot overwhelm the people of New York. Just after the blood moon that was terrifying all night, 2 big monsters, Hulk and Abomination, came. It was really lively. Although the monsters such as skeletons that appeared on the night of the blood moon caused some casualties, at least the city could remain intact. Once the Hulk and Abomination came, New York would be completely rebuilt. Link played with the long sword, shield, and bow that Tony had just made for him. Tony and Link are two people with very different personalities, but they have one thing in common. That is, they have a strong ability to destroy things. Link broke hard weapons one after another, even including the Guard's weapon set series that Tony was proud of, which made Tony have a strong desire to win. I must make a weapon that you can't destroy. So at a rapid speed, a new weapon was iterated, the second generation Guard's weapon set. And Zelda, sitting next to Link, wearing black framed glasses, reading a book quietly. Link felt that, if Zelda was given a little more time, he could also make a nuclear bomb for you. He originally thought that Zelda would be very uncomfortable in the Marvel world, but it turned out to be too much. Link looked up and looked at the sea of clouds outside the window, feeling a little confused. Is this plane too slow? Suddenly, Link heard a childish cry, "Ahaha," and was immediately startled. So he stood up, went to the cockpit, and asked, "What happened?" The captain's forehead was sweating, and he said calmly, "No, everything is fine, Mr. Link. Please wait patiently for a while." Link frowned. "I think you seem to have encountered some troubles. Don't hide it. Tell me." There was a hint of majesty in his tone. Link was born as a guard knight, and he was born with a noble air. The captain was impressed by Link's momentum, so he said weakly, "Mr. Link, I don't know why we seem to have flown into an invisible maze, although we have been flying forward. But in fact, we have been in this direction, and have never moved." The captain had naturally heard of strange events such as the Bermuda Triangle. He immediately realized that this was also an extremely dangerous supernatural event. Even with many years of navigation experience, the captain was at a loss. Hearing the captain's terrifying words, Link smiled instead, recalling the faint "ah" sound he had just made. Link immediately knew that the so-called supernatural event was definitely caused by a strange creature called Krallo. I usually call it Yahaha, from the Hyrule continent. Yahaha is similar to Groot in Marvel. He is a small tree elf who likes to play hide and seek. If you find him, Yahaha will give the finder a little reward that can be used to expand the weapon space. Link is very skilled in playing hide and seek with Yahaha. He began to observe his surroundings. It's the end of the month. If you have any remaining monthly tickets, don't waste them. Please vote for my work. If you can really vote successfully. Thank you to bookfriend Kihei for 500 starting coins. Thank you to bookfriend Minecraft for 500 starting coins. Thank you to Muyang's2 for your recommendation vote. Thank you to Bison4 for your recommendation vote. Thank you to Dadayutao1 for your recommendation vote. Thank you to Minglionson1 for your recommendation vote. Thank you to DarkStarDrak3 for your recommendation vote. Thank you to ShuLionsHow2 for your recommendation vote. Thank you to Spitfire9 for your recommendation vote. Thank you to Devour the King 4 for your recommendation vote. Thank you to Carousel3 for your recommendation vote. Thanks to King of Salted Fish for 2 recommendations. Thanks to Zayakayang Dark Cloud for 2 recommendations. Thanks to DreamY for 1 recommendation. Thanks to RHPK for 9 recommendations. Thanks to Camilla for 6 recommendations. Thanks to bookfriend 1506161923294633 for 7 recommendations. Thanks to Kaunemayo for 7 recommendations. Thanks to Crazy Saoa Ocean for 1 recommendation. Thanks to AI for 4 recommendations. Thanks to Zinhei Creed for 5 recommendations. Thanks to the Godly Old Man for 3 recommendations. Thanks to I'm Balloon for 8 recommendations. Thanks to Yupiaoan for 2 recommendations. Thanks to Liuan and Xiao for 3 recommendations. Thanks to Minecraft for 2 recommendations. Thanks to Zianayu Zions for 2 recommendations. Thanks to Yang Hengd Penglaran for 2 recommendations. Chapter 35 Peepapa. Link searched the whole plane, but couldn't find it. The stewardess followed Link around with a confused look on her face. Even though Link was a very handsome boy and the stewardess was very tolerant of him, her smile gradually froze, and she said to herself, how come this naughty boy is as difficult as Stark? Link searched everywhere, except for under the stewardess skirt. The Pokemon theme song Mezes Pokemon Master should be played here as background music. He muttered, I'm afraid it's not on the plane. Seeing Link wandering around with great interest, Zelda put down the book and asked with a smile, what are you looking for? Link smiled and said, "There's a Kralo hidden here." Zelda said happily, "Really? Let's compete to see who can find it first." The stewardess felt a headache, and there was one more naughty kid. Since the plane could not be found, Link decided to go to the plane to look for it. When he said this idea, the stewardess was scared. She was too lazy to chat with the two naughty kids, and ran directly to the captain. The captain also cried, "Oh, God. In such a crisis, what trouble are these two kids causing?" Just as the crew members were trying to stop Link's actions, the two naughty kids they were trying to stop had already come to the rear warehouse, where the goods were stored. The two of them worked together and opened the rear-facing door. The higher naughty kids have amazing mobility in some unknown way, and Link jumped out in one breath. When the captain entrusted the driving task to the person beside him and hurried over with the flight attendant, they saw the rear door open. The wind was blowing wildly, and the little blonde girl who liked reading was leaning against a wall, swinging her long hair with one hand. As for the other boy, he was nowhere to be seen at the moment. The captain walked up dully, looked at the wide open rear door, swallowed his saliva, and asked Zelda tremblingly, This girl, where is the boy?" Zelda said calmly, "He jumped out." As soon as the captain heard the word jump, he made a strange sound and fainted on the ground. Link, with the help of the power of the bomb, was ejected and hit the tail wing. Link rubbed his head. At this moment, the wind and cold air rushed towards Link's body. If it were an ordinary person, he would probably not be able to hold on. The cold air poured in at high speed would be enough to burst the lungs of ordinary people in a few seconds. Link's hair was blown straight by the wind, and a layer of frost quickly formed on his face. Squinting his eyes, he saw a circular halo above the plane, making a clacking sound. Link immediately knew that, as long as he shot an arrow through the halo, Yahaha would appear. This halo was very strange. No matter how fast the plane flew, the halo could be fixed in the same position above the plane. Link took out his bow and arrow, and pulled the bow to the limit. He was on top of the moving plane. If he didn't apply enough force, the arrow would be blown away by the wind as soon as it was shot. Link shot an arrow and hit the halo. There was a sound of fireworks exploding, and a little green man with short and thin limbs and a leaf mask on his head was floating in the air with a branch of rotating leaves. He shouted in a tender voice, "Yahaha, you found me." Then Gilu Gilu landed in front of Link with a leaf dragonfly and a little cry in his tender voice, "Brave man." Link looked closely and found that he knew this Yahaha. Although the Yahaha are very similar, Link can still recognize a few of them. The Yahaha in front of him is called Peppa, the manager of the Kralo Forest Inn, one of the few in Hyrule continent that can provide Link with free rest and accommodation. He admires Link very much. Every time he goes to Kralo Forest, Peppa will serve Link well like a little wife. Then he heard Peppa spread his short arms and called tenderly, "Brave sir, that, one day when I was out playing, I suddenly lost my way, and then ran to this world. I didn't expect that the brave sir still found me. Brave sir, I'm sorry, I can't provide you with a place to sleep, I can't go back now." Peppa lowered his head, very frustrated. Link smiled and put away the bow, then touched Peppa's head. After Link woke up, he spent most of his time wandering and exploring alone. In fact, it was not Zelda, but these Yahaha who accompanied him for the longest time. Link smiled and said, "I can't go back either. You should stay with me from now on." Peppa became excited and asked expectantly, "Really? Of course." Link hugged Peppa and jumped into the air, then used the force of 2 bombs to refract, and rushed into the rear cabin. At this moment, the captain had just been rescued by the flight attendant, and saw Link stepping on the shield and landing in the plane. He screamed ugh, and fainted again. Peppa shouted in Link's arms with a shrill voice, "Princess." Flying out of Link's arms, he gave Zelda a not so standard salute in the air with a very funny posture, and Zelda had to return the salute. Zelda also knew this little admirer of Link, touched Peppa's head, and asked with a smile, "Why did you come to this world?" While Zelda and Peppa were chatting, Link hurried to the captain, pinched his Renzang, and woke him up. The captain shook his head and woke up. When he saw Link's face, he immediately screamed, "Ghost." It hurt Link's ears. With the help of the flight attendant, the captain woke up from his shock, and then called Tony tremblingly, "Hello, Mr. Stark. The guest you introduced to us, he He jumped out of the plane. Link scratched his hair full of wet ice chips. Tony, who was far away in California, had just taken a sip of chlorophyll when he heard about Link jumping out of the plane, and his mouth was full of juice. Tony coughed and asked, "Is Link, oh, the boy who jumped out of the plane, okay?" The captain, "He is fine, but this incident is too bad." The captain desperately complained to Tony. Tony had seen too many shocking things done by Link, so he was very calm. In the end, he responded to the captain's accusation. "Oh, the captain. Tony didn't care. Don't contact me for such a small matter. With Link here, you are safe. Even if you encounter a monster, you don't have to worry about other people's safety. Yeah. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be responsible for Link's safety responsibility." In order to calm the captain's anger, Tony promised to subsidize the airline. Under the financial offensive, the matter was easily settled. The captain was still angry. "Really? Too much. Link you. Link." The flight attendant also reflected, covering her mouth, and her eyes quickly found Link's long ears. "You are fighting the elves of the skeleton monster in New York. Link. Huh. Welcome to Vote and Collect. The work needs support. There is another chapter around 12 o'clock. Thank you Kuang Ocean for your 100 starting coins reward support. Thank you Shanna for your 500 starting coins reward support. Thank you for 3 more recommendation votes. Thanks to the young man, who often reads novels, for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to the handsome attitude for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Minecrafter for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Fuxikin for 12 recommendation votes. Thanks to the Clown XX for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Spitfire for 9 recommendation votes. Thanks to Lang Lang for 5 recommendation votes. Thanks to the Summer Special Drink Cold Boiled Water for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Yuki for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Luo Jensen for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to the Funeral Night Emperor for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Forget the Past Me for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Mr. Sansu, 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to the Pride in the Bones, 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to Kahei for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Ziana Wu for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to 123 recommendation votes. Thanks to the Thunder Angel Yan for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to the Incredible Will for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to the Devouring King for 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to the Salted Fish Judgment for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to the Carousel for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Yezekiel for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Zuayuke for the recommendation vote. Chapter 36, Battle Against Hulk plus Abomination. Without Peppa's prank, the plane immediately resumed normal flight. Link and Zelda fed Peppa fruit. Link brought a lot of fruit. Peppa was full of 2 apples, and the rest of the fruit went into Link's stomach. Since knowing Link's identity, the flight attendant has been much more enthusiastic. She took Link and Zelda to take pictures and post them on Instagram. The flight attendant is a New Yorker and has a special liking for Link. When Zelda and Link got off the plane, it was already night. Peppa hugged Link's neck, stood on his shoulder, and exclaimed, "What a big city, so bright." Zelda asked Link, "Where can we find Mr. Banner?" Link looked at the sky and said, "We don't need to look for them, they will appear soon." Link must let the plot progress by itself for a while, and let the abomination destroy the remaining serum, otherwise Mr. Blue's collection of Banner's blood will not be destroyed, and countless Hulks will appear in the world. The two took a car to the city center and wandered around. Before the war, Link needed to relax. Events happened one after another, and Link was a little exhausted. Walking on the busy street, some people noticed Link and Zelda's long ears, and looked a little strange. Unlike Tony, who wanted the whole world to know him, Link didn't like to be watched by people, so he and Zelda went to a store and bought a baseball cap to wear, while Zelda wore long hair to cover her ears. Even so, they couldn't avoid attracting attention, because the Peppa on Link's shoulder was too eye-catching. He screamed everywhere, "Ah! So many humans! Ah! So big!" A curious person ran over to ask what Peppa was, and Zelda replied, "This is a new electronic pet developed by Stark Group." He was fooled. After less than half an hour of shopping, Link, who couldn't stand the harassment, took Zelda and Pepper, as well as a large bag of snacks, to a quiet restaurant, ordered something to eat while waiting. Pepper looked at Link with admiration. "Mr. Brave, you are so awesome." Zelda asked, "What's so awesome about you?" Pepper said in an exaggerated tone, "I've been eating food." Link ignored Pepper. Although he was eating, his eyes were always looking out the window. Then his long ears moved, and he heard the dull sounds of boom and boom, and then there was a commotion in the distance. Link stood up and said to Zelda and Pepper, "Wait here for a while, I have to go to fight." Pepper danced with the maracas that Zelda bought for him, shouting, "Come on, Mr. Brave." Then Link walked out, paused with his hands, and a bow appeared. The place where he ate was only one street away from the place where the battle took place. A large number of panicked people quickly fled the scene, but Link was the only one who walked in the opposite direction. An enthusiastic person grabbed Link and shouted, "Little girl, there is danger there, don't go over there." Link had a delicate face, a hat, a white neck, and a body much thinner than the American boy, so he could easily be mistaken for a girl. Link had no choice but to take off his hat and said, "I'm a boy." The enthusiastic person was immediately stunned. Any New Yorker would recognize Link's face and two long ears. He was surprised and said, "Are you the elf boy?" Link looked confused. "My name is Link." Then there was an explosion in front of him. The enthusiastic person trembled, but he was not too scared. He smiled at Link and said, "I wish you victory in the battle. I'm leaving." Then he ran away in a panic, and when he left, he turned around and raised two fingers to Link, a sign of victory. Link also made a V-shaped gesture. He turned around, looked stern, and rushed over quickly. At this time, the abomination was wreaking havoc on the street, roaring, "Haha! Power! Power!" He lifted up a sports car, and a couple in it were screaming in panic. Just as the abomination was about to crumple the sports car into a ball and throw it out like a bowling ball, he suddenly felt a pain in his stomach, and then he let go of the sports car and flew out. The sports car had been deformed by the abomination, and the couple was stuck in the car and couldn't move. The sports car fell down, and Link rushed up, held up the car with both hands, paused, and then gently put the sports car on the ground. The couple screamed in the car, and Link tore open the car door and whispered, "You will be safe." Seeing Link's appearance, the couple was stunned, and then shouted in surprise, "Elf." Then Link pulled hard, and the steel and seat stuck between the two people were separated, revealing 4 bloody legs. Link lifted the two people out with one hand each. At this time, the couple shouted, "Be careful." Link's hair stood up on his back, and he felt the violent gust of wind behind him. He didn't care so much, and hurriedly threw the couple aside. As soon as he turned around, he was hit in the abdomen by the abomination. In a hurry, Link directly summoned the heroic spirit of Darkle. Darkle roared, sending the abomination flying. Link broke out in a cold sweat. If he had been hit hard by the abomination, his liver would have been broken. The abomination crawled out of the hole in the wall and roared, "Link, it's you. Haha. You're still so small, but I'm different. You must not have hurt me just now. Ha ha ha." Link said nothing more, took out his bow, and shot an arrow. The abomination suddenly dodged, and Link rushed in quickly, took out the second generation guard sword, and smashed it down. Darkle behind him also roared, and swung the rock-breaking sword to cut. The abomination boomed, and blood gushed out, and flew out again. Link's feet trembled, and he almost fell. Darkle shouted behind Link, "Your body can't hold on, I'll fall asleep first." Then the pale blue shadow soul behind Link disappeared. At this moment, the abomination has been injured. Even without Darkle, the victory is already decided. Link alone is enough to defeat him. While the abomination has not recovered, just deal with him quickly. Link rushed up with the big sword, and then at this time, there was a roar in the sky. Link's face changed, and he jumped to dodge. A big green guy suddenly hit the ground. He looked up, and it was the Hulk. Hulk yelled at Link, "Hulk." Link thought Hulk jumped off the plane to deal with the abomination, but he immediately felt something was wrong. Hulk's hostility was directed at Link. The abomination was doing evil in New York. Ross, Banner, and Betty were all watching on the plane. When they were feeling helpless, Link suddenly rushed out and knocked down the abomination. Seeing Link, Banner was instantly wrong. He suddenly transformed into the Hulk and jumped off the plane screaming. Link understood what was going on in an instant. Hulk had been beaten by Link once, and with one sword he chopped back into Banner's original form. Hulk then hated Link, and was even angrier when he saw Link than when he saw Abomination. After realizing what was going on, Link secretly thought that it was not good. This battle in New York was not only against Abomination, but also against Hulk. Hulk roared and rushed over. Link rolled and dragged his sword to dodge. Hulk smashed a wall with one punch. Link was startled and immediately found that Hulk's strength had increased a lot compared to when he was in Brazil. Is Hulk still getting stronger? A new day, welcome to Collect and Vote. Thank you Minecraft 500 for your support with the starting coins. Thank you Johnton000042 recommendation votes. Thank you Bookfriends 161204132755631991 recommendation votes. Thank you Avalon 42 recommendation votes. Thank you Wu Renbushi 1 recommendation vote. Thank you Bookfriends 1512070825212913 recommendation votes. Thanks to Black Pen and White Words for 6 recommendation votes. Thanks to Shanna 44 recommendation votes. Thanks to Bookfriend 201807060043333741 recommendation votes. Thanks to a new Shanna 45 recommendation votes. Thanks to Demon King, come to play soy sauce for 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to Zuwu MOU for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Cat Abuser Scrodina for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to RHPK for 9 recommendation votes. Thanks to Risky 564 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Camilla for 12 recommendation votes. Thanks to Grab the Name for 6 recommendation votes. Thanks to Yun Mengan 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Zan Yun Yunian for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Yuling Feng Lei for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Zinkan Zionio for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Board Teammates for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Lust, Caution Fleet for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Yang Heng Snow for 9 recommendation votes. Thanks to Chung Lebu ZZHI for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to MOZ Fenny for 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to Ziokerd for 5 recommendations. Thanks to Minecraft for 4 recommendations. Thanks to Yezikiel for 2 recommendations. Thanks to Zixio for 7 recommendations. Chapter 37 The So-Called Brave Man. When Link secretly groaned, Hulk roared and rushed over. Link held his breath and concentrated instantly, and rushed sideways, playing bullet time, and the world stopped under his feet. Link rushed up, swung the guard's great sword, and slashed it wildly. The bullet time ended, and Hulk suddenly popped out like a bull. Link looked at his guard's great sword in silence. The blade was shining coldly. Such a sharp sword couldn't actually inflict a wound on Hulk. If so, Link's eyes turned cold, and he no longer showed mercy. Anyway, Hulk would not be killed by him easily. Then Link could let go. Hulk rubbed his head, and was about to stand up. Link bent his bow and shot an arrow in an instant, hitting Hulk's head. Dang. It hit stiffness. Link jumped twice, and came to the dazed Hulk and slashed him. Raw. Hulk struggled to stand up. When he opened his eyes, he saw Link's face was cold, and the arrow turned into a dot from Hulk's perspective. Bang! The arrow flew out, and Hulk screamed, and fell to the ground again with his head raised, and was hit by Link. This time Link stepped directly on Hulk, and slashed at his face with the guard's great sword. Hulk screamed again and again, and Betty, who was far away on the plane, saw it and fainted on the spot. Hulk's strength in data is indeed stronger than Link. But who is Link? The brave man who can run rampant in Hyrule with a potblade. His strength on paper cannot reflect his terrible actual combat ability. After a series of operations, Hulk was beaten without any ability to fight back, lying on the ground with his face covered and screaming. When Link was having fun slashing, the thing he hated the most happened. The second generation guard's great sword developed by Tony, Snap, broke again. Hulk immediately seized the opportunity, stood up suddenly, stretched out his hands to Link, and wanted to tear this hateful boy into pieces. Link screamed, a shield appeared in his left hand, and a bomb appeared in his right hand. The bomb was pressed on Hulk's face, and the shield was protected in front of him, and bang! It exploded. Link flew up with the momentum of the bomb, landed on Hulk's shoulder, and grabbed Hulk's hair, which was still relatively long at that time. Banner. Hulk. Be quiet. Link roared, punching Hulk's head, tossing back and forth like taming a wild horse. Get down. Hulk spoke in a voice like a mentally retarded child. He stretched out his hand to pull Link down, but Link was thin and agile, dodging back and forth on Hulk's head and shoulders, and punching and kicking Hulk in the eyes whenever he had the chance. Hulk jumped left and right like a mad rhino, but he couldn't do anything to Link. At this time, under the influence of the serum, Abomination's body recovered quickly, stood up, and stared at Link and Hulk with red eyes. Abomination still had a little bit of reason, and he was thinking about making Hulk and Link lose both, and then he would go forward to defeat them. But after a while, Link and Hulk were still playing the cowboy game there, and they couldn't do anything to each other. Abomination couldn't help it, and suddenly pounced on them quietly. Link felt something was wrong, and when he looked back, he saw the Abomination rushing up and punching Hulk in the head. Link was right on Hulk's head, and if the punch hit him hard, Link would also be hurt. Thinking about the current situation, Link did a backflip and jumped down. Before Hulk could react, he was hit hard on the head like a hammer. His eyes went black and his body flipped and flew out. Link landed, and Hulk rubbed his head and stood up. Unlike the original Time and Space, the Abomination at this moment was more hostile to Link than the Hulk. And the Hulk was the same. The Abomination laughed wildly. Hulk. Let's join forces. Get rid of this kid first. Link's face turned pale. He had to deal with two big monsters at the same time. These two big monsters could beat Link to death with just one punch. Hulk yelled, "Go away, I'll beat Link." The Abomination's voice was very cunning. "Okay, whatever. You fight yours, I fight mine. Anyway, they were both going to beat Link. Link said angrily, "Hulk, don't make me angry. Otherwise, I will beat you so hard that you dare not come out of Banner's body in the future." The brave and fearless Hulk actually hesitated at this time, obviously because he was beaten by Link twice in a row, and was a little scared. But then his eyes regained their ferocity, and rushed over madly. Abomination also rushed over with a shout when Hulk started. Although Hulk did not agree to join forces, but the two still attacked Link together. The situation was urgent at this time. Although Link was angry, his heart was empty. He was a brave man. He became stronger when he met a strong one, and stronger when he met a stronger one. At this time, the crisis was indescribable, but the danger and predicament made Link's heart heroic for a lifetime. At this time, Zelda and Pepper ran over and watched from a distance. Seeing the two monsters punching Link at the same time, Zelda exclaimed and rushed over, and Pepper also ran over with his short legs, so anxious that he forgot that he had a leaf bamboo dragonfly. And Link just smiled at this. This smile suddenly calmed Zelda down. She stopped, squatted down, and hugged Pepper. Pepper was struggling. "The brave man is in danger," Zelda said calmly. "He will be fine." Link held a shield to meet Hulk. Hulk's sprint speed was faster than the wind speed, and his fist even turned into an afterimage, but Link still caught his speed, and launched a shield counter. Bang! Hulk used all his strength in one punch, but all his strength was bounced back by Link, like a rhino riding a missile on ice, flying back. Link didn't have time to care about what building Hulk had crashed into. Turning his toes, twisting his waist, turning around and doing another shield counter. Just when the Abomination was about to hit his body, he bounced back all the Abomination's attack. Even if he was just 0.1 second slower, he would still be hit by the Abomination. In a flash, two monsters, one red and one green, rushed over at high speed and bounced back at the same speed. Link stood in the center, unscathed, but his movement was too big just now, and his hairband was loose. Link bit the hair tie with his lips, gathered his hair, and tied it into a ponytail again, very calm. This scene was captured by a daring reporter with a camera from a distance. The reporter was also stunned. Link was in a divine position at this time. With his exquisite appearance and brilliant golden hair, he looked like an angel at this moment. Yeah. The brave man won. Pepper cheered victoriously and waved the maracas in Zelda's arms. At this moment, Hulk and Abomination stood up at the same time. Hulk was a little panicked in his rage, while the remaining motivation of Abomination disappeared under Link's attack. Two monsters, one red and one green, rushed again. Link snorted coldly, moved sideways and dodged to the side. Hulk and Abomination collided with each other with a bang. The bang sound was very loud. Link rubbed his long ears. He looked coldly at the two stunned big pieces of meat, stretched out his palm, and Unsuv floated into the air. Then, a new round of recommendations has begun. If you think this work is good, please add it to your collection. The work needs your support. Every day I copy down the thank you messages from book friends for their awards and recommendations, so that I can remember the lovely book friends who support me. Thank you Rusky560 for your 100 Kidian coins reward support. Thank you Priest for 6 recommendation votes. Thank you Long for 5 recommendation votes. Thank you ZooWooMou for 1 recommendation vote. Thank you Handsome Attitude for 3 recommendation votes. Thank you King Feng Yukin Liuzui for 1 recommendation vote. Thank you Young Men Who Often Read Novels for 3 recommendation votes. Gan Shenke for 4 recommendation votes. Thank you Gwen for 2 recommendation votes. Thank you Crazy for Cats for 3 recommendation votes. Thank you Fuxikin for 12 recommendation votes. Thank you Zuyu for 3 recommendation votes. Thank you Mengwai for 1 recommendation vote. Thank you ClownXX for 1 recommendation vote. Thank you FazyMO for 4 recommendation votes. Thank you Lank for 5 recommendation votes. Thank you Leelantarshian for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Mr. Sansu, 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to the Devouring King, 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to Yukshaduan Nuo Sansheng, 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to 123 recommendation votes. Thanks to Anran Shangshandidi, 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to Rusky, 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Dada Yatao, 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Changle Buzizki, 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to Sabi Shian Wang 0, 18 recommendation votes. Thanks to Zuayuken, 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Shuayao 15,120,708,252,129, 13 recommendation votes. Thanks to Ziana Wu, 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Shanna, 2 recommendation votes. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 38 Conquer the Hulk. General Ross was sitting in the helicopter, looking down, and saw how Link dealt with the two monsters, and he was so shocked that he broke out in a cold sweat. He didn't know how to judge Link's strength. 2 unprecedented monsters were controlled by Link. Is this guy really from Earth? After the Hulk and the Abomination collided, Link immediately controlled the magnetic grabber to control Unsuv, flew into the sky, and then let it go, letting it fall naturally under gravity and hit the two monsters. Hulk and the Abomination roared, grabbed the vehicle, and tore it apart, and then pounced on Link. Link dodged lightly, played bullet time, rushed forward, and hit Hulk's head with his shield, causing Hulk's head to tilt, and hit the Abomination next to him. The Abomination turned around and punched Link, and Link dodged, backflipped and rose up, kicking the Abomination's entire fist with his foot, causing the force to deflect in the direction, and punch the Hulk next to him. The two monsters were strong but not smart, and they didn't know how to cooperate. Link seized this weakness, and beat them hard. His thin body got between the two, causing Hulk and Abomination to often accidentally hurt each other. Although Link was concentrating on his footwork, turning, and anticipation, his expression was calm, as if this was not a dangerous battlefield, but Princess Jingai's flower field behind Hyrule Castle. Peppa looked at him with admiration, and kept exclaiming in a tender voice, "Oh, so awesome, wow." Zelda, who was holding Peppa, was even more deeply touched. Zelda was very familiar with Link, and knew one thing very well: since Link woke up, his strength has never recovered to its peak. After being seriously injured, and sleeping for 100 years, Link's strength has weakened a lot. Even after defeating Ganon, obtaining the skills of the 4 divine beasts, and having the power of the Sheikah's lab, it was still the same. Although Link was still very powerful 100 years later. However, he was still far inferior to the strongest Link who defeated a legion of guardians by himself 100 years ago. And Zelda found that the strongest Link 100 years ago was slowly waking up. She watched Link fighting from a distance. Although there were murderous intentions everywhere, and he would be seriously injured and killed if he was not careful, Link always remained calm, wandering between life and death, without any fear or retreat. Bang! Link countered with a shield and knocked Hulk away. Then he stepped on the shield to receive the impact of the bomb, quickly followed, pulled the bow in the air, and pointed the arrow at Hulk's eyeball. Link said coldly, "Give up, or go blind." Although Link's negotiation ability was poor, he was still ready to try to communicate with Hulk. The battle between Link, Hulk, and Abomination had turned this street into a ruin. Fighting further was not a solution after all. Link said in a deep voice, "Hulk, you see, I'm very angry now. I believe you know the horror of anger. Either admit defeat now, or let me beat you to admit defeat." Then Link's tone became gentle, and he said softly, "Hulk, I don't want to hurt you or kill you. We are not enemies, understand? If you continue to make trouble, I will hate you." Hulk and Banner belong to two different personalities. Hulk is a life that has just been born. Fear and anger are the first emotions of life. Newborn babies choose to cry and hold on to things tightly. The newborn Hulk has a more convenient way to express emotions, violence. The movie Thor 3 shows that Hulk can communicate. So Link wants to try. He likes to try challenges, just like he tamed the most violent horse in Hyrule. Link threw the bow and arrow to show that he had no hostility. Hulk repeated awkwardly, "Don't hurt me?" Link nodded, feeling a little happy in his heart. My personality charm is still very strong. But in fact, compared with Link's unfamiliar negotiation skills, the most important reason is that Hulk was beaten by Link. In the first battle, Hulk was beaten back to his original form. In the second battle, Hulk had no power to fight back. This was the first time that Hulk encountered an opponent that he could not solve with force. To conquer such a life with a stupid brain and strong strength, violence is the most efficient. But if there is any way that is more effective than violence, it is obviously using violence to solve the problem, but not doing so. Link smiled and stretched out his hand to express his friendliness. Hulk also stretched out his hand and shook Link's hand, then grabbed Link and threw him out. BIU. Link disappeared in Hulk's palm like a cannonball, crashed into the building, fell all over, with glass shards all over his head and bloodstains on his face. Link was furious. This scene seemed familiar. Thor was treated like this by Hulk. He roared, "Hulk, you bastard." He was about to say, "I will kill you." Hulk was hit by the Abomination in the ruins, and the Abomination bit Hulk's neck madly. Then he suddenly realized Hulk wanted to save him just now. Link ran out in a hurry, stepped on the shield and surfed over. With a raise of his hand, a car floated into Link's hand. Link tried to lift it up and smashed it hard on the head of the Abomination. Bang! With a sound, the head of the Abomination was embedded in the car. Hulk seized the opportunity and kicked the Abomination away. Hulk roared in anger. His neck was bitten, and blood flowed down like the chlorophyll juice that Tony drank. Hulk punched his chest with both fists, and Link dodged in a hurry, fearing that he would be accidentally injured by Hulk. The Abomination supported his body with his arms, and looked at Link and Hulk with hatred. Link patted Hulk's waist and said, "Let's team up to beat him." Hulk also patted Link's back and laughed. "Okay." Hulk and Link team up. Link looked at Hulk, whose hostility had disappeared, and couldn't help but smile. Then he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. Hulk slapped Link and injured him internally. "Hulk." Link glared at Hulk and roared, "Did you do it on purpose?" Hulk hurriedly explained, then said, "Link is injured. Hulk alone fights monsters." Then he roared and pounced on the Abomination. Link coughed and sat down against the wall. The bastard Hulk slapped away 2 bars of Link's health. Link felt that his breath was held in his body, and he felt very uncomfortable. The slap from the strongest Avenger was really not a lie. At this moment, the voice of the goddess Hylia came to Link's ears again. "Trial of the brave. Conquer the Hulk. Get rewards." Link muttered in his heart, "Don't increase the power of the bomb again." Heart container. +3. Energy container. +3. Link suddenly felt a warm current in his body, his arms were full of strength, and the injuries inflicted by Hulk were instantly healed. At present, there are 8 hearts in total, and the energy tank has reached 2 circles, and the body strength has increased sharply. Now Hulk wants to slap Link to cause internal injuries, but it will not be so easy. Welcome to Vote and Collect to support this work. Thank you for the support of 500 starting coins from Holy Armor. Thank you for 15 recommendation votes from FDVBG. Thank you for 9 recommendation votes from Spitfire. Thank you for 13 recommendation votes from the young man who does not know the taste of sorrow. Thank you for 4 recommendation votes from N Pride in the Bones. Thank you for 8 recommendation votes from Darkstarred Rack. Thank you for 1 recommendation vote from the Final Battle Humanoid. Thank you for 12 recommendation votes from Camilla. Thank you for 7 recommendation votes from Broken Wings for You. Thank you for 3 recommendation votes from Carousel. Thank you for 4 recommendation votes from Black Crow Don't Cry. Thank you for 3 recommendation votes from Chunayu. Thanks to Bookfriend201806291816147991 votes. Thanks to Summer Special Drink Cold White Water for 2 votes. Thanks to Rookie Version of At for 2 votes. Thanks to Leng Leng Bingzin for 14 votes. Thanks to Desserts Full of Fish for 2 votes. Thanks to I Can't Grab My Name for 6 votes. Thanks to Red Flags Ask Rolling in the West Wind for 4 votes. Thanks to Ni GGR for 5 votes. Thanks to Shulan Zhao for 2 votes. Thanks to The Wind Is Too Big to Blow Me Away for 4 votes. Thanks to Demon King Pterosaur for 2 votes. Thanks to Gbift for 7 votes. Thanks to MMT Kings for 3 votes. Thanks to Lance the Gentleman for 3 votes. Thanks to Zanyun Yunian for 2 votes. Thanks to Evening Breeze Canyon for 4 votes. Chapter 39 The Bottom Line. After increasing his health, Link's injuries were completely healed. He was not idle either. Hulk and Abomination were fighting happily in front of him, while Link used the magnetic grabber from a distance to absorb the car into the sky and threw it at Abomination with a whoosh. At this moment, Link's strength was as high as 2 rounds of energy gauge, which was more than enough to throw a car. In the previous battle with the 2 monsters, Link focused on attacking Abomination, so now Abomination is weaker than Hulk. Then Link continued to hit him with the expensive car sledgehammer, and Hulk soon gained the upper hand. Hulk roared, grabbed Abomination's head and smashed it hard on the ground, cracking the asphalt ground and smashing a big hole. Seeing that Hulk was about to end the battle, Link did not do anything more and waited quietly. Zelda ran over with Peppa in her arms. Looking at the crazy Hulk, she always felt unbelievable. Is this really the same person as her gentle and elegant teacher Banner? Link frowned. He noticed that the Abomination had been smashed to death by Hulk, but Hulk still didn't stop, holding the Abomination's head and pounding the ground. The scene was very bloody. Link looked at Zelda, who looked uncomfortable. Peppa was so scared that even the leaf mask on his face turned yellow. So he immediately shouted, "Hulk, stop. He's dead." Hulk's brain was full of wildness at this moment. Seeing Link disturbing him, he turned back and roared, but then quickly silenced. First, Hulk saw Link's face immediately turned bad. As the only human who didn't feel fear and disgust for him, Hulk's simple thinking didn't want to make Link hate him. Second, the sleeping Banner consciousness saw Zelda's tangled eyes and suddenly felt ashamed of his barbaric and cruel appearance. Under the influence of the 2 consciousnesses, Hulk put down the Abomination, who was born dangerously and died tragically, and came to Link with his hands full of sticky blood. "We won," he said, then squatted down and looked at Zelda. Zelda shrank behind Link in fear, her bright eyes looking at Hulk with touching timidity. Hulk hesitated and said, "Banner said he missed you." Zelda finally smiled, and Hulk also smiled foolishly. Link stepped on a car nearby, then slapped Hulk's shoulder. Hulk lost his balance and fell to the ground. He turned back and yelled at Link, "You hit someone." Link jumped out of the car and smiled, "I'll give it back to you." Hulk scratched his head and said, "Link and Hulk are even." Link was very happy. You see, as long as you use the right method, Hulk is still easy to talk to. Just when Link took it for granted, Hulk's face suddenly changed, and he stretched out his arm, sweeping Link and Zelda away. Link hurriedly protected Zelda, but Zelda still hit the ground heavily, breaking a corner of her forehead. Zelda is Link's Achilles heel. When the princess was injured, Link was instantly furious. He didn't even roar. He took out his bow and arrow and wanted to show the Hulk a lesson. As soon as he took out the bow and arrow, Link was stunned. It turned out that this time, he had wrongly accused Hulk. Hulk still had good intentions. Hulk was hit by many bullets. If Hulk didn't sweep Link and Zelda away in time, Zelda would not only be injured on the forehead. Link looked over and saw the military attacking Hulk with guns, and the helicopter in the sky opened the door, revealing Ross's cold face. Interfering with the plot is so troublesome. Link fought against the abomination too early, so Banner saved Ross and Betty, and the reconciliation between the two did not happen. Ross still insisted on Hulk. Good. You just shot Hulk without considering whether Zelda would be implicated, right? Link helped Zelda to stand up, blow on the wound, kissed Zelda's forehead, and said softly, "Does it hurt?" Zelda shook her head. "I'm fine." The teacher. Hulk had already escaped and disappeared. Link said softly, "Wait here for a while." Link walked forward. Everyone has a bottom line, and Link's bottom line is Zelda. Ross has attacked Zelda more than once. This is playing Link's bottom line like a guitar. Link took out the bow and arrow, and the soldier shouted, "Put down your weapons." Link's shoulders suddenly shook, and an arrow was shot out, piercing the soldier's neck and flying out, piercing the eye socket of the soldier behind him. Link's shoulders shook again, and 3 ghostly arrows flew out, and 3 soldiers with guns fell to the ground, covering their necks. Ross took a deep breath and his eyes turned cold. "Are you provoking the military?" He immediately gave the order, "Kill the thug Link." Then he looked at Betty, who was knocked unconscious by him, and said with a ruthless heart, "If the target is too threatening, attack the little girl." After receiving the order, the soldiers immediately focused their fire on Link, and bullets rained down on Link. Link looked cold and easily turned around to dodge, then reached out to activate the magnetic grabber, picked up a car, and smashed it at the soldiers. After a while, no one stood up on the field. The battle was resolved in an instant, and Link looked at the helicopter in the night sky with a cold look. Ross cursed, "Damn it. Bastard. Let's retreat quickly." But after Ross shouted, the plane never moved. The pilot desperately twisted the joystick, but the helicopter could not move forward even 1 meter. And below the helicopter, if people with good eyesight can see a faint space distortion line, Link had already used the magnetic grabber to control the plane, making the helicopter stagnant in midair and unable to escape. Then Link pulled the bowstring to its full length, and with a bang, an arrow flew up. Ross huddled in the plane and murmured, "My God." Before he could finish his words, an arrow shot through the helicopter shell, and the force did not decrease. After piercing Ross's head, it pierced through the helicopter shell again, and disappeared in the air. Ross fell to the ground with a snap, and the blood under him spread larger and larger. It's over. He killed a senior official, and can't stay in the United States. Link thought so, but he didn't regret it at all. He put away the bow, and came to Zelda and said, "Princess, let's go." Link began to think about whether he should go to the Kingdom of Wakanda in Africa to get some vibranium for equipment. At this time, a car sprinted at an illegal speed and stopped in front of Link. A bald black man with an eye mask and a beautiful red-haired woman got out of the passenger seat. It was really Natasha and Nick. Nick looked very unhappy. "Link, you disappoint me. I thought you could control your power." Natasha leaned against the car, looked at her phone, and whispered, "New York is such an unlucky place." Link looked at Nick, very calm. "I'm very calm. I know what I did." Nick's face was gloomy, and the atmosphere was depressing. "I thought you were a hero with a kind heart, but you are just a thug committing crimes on the streets of New York. I made a mistake in my evaluation of you. You are a dangerous person who deserves to be deprived of your life, a cruel monster like Hulk. Good morning. I found that many people voted for me in the morning. You must be looking forward to seeing the new chapter as soon as you wake up. Thank you for watching. Welcome to Vote, Collect and Support. Thank you for the support of Lily Water Bottle with 1200 starting coins. Thank you for the Handsome Attitude 3 recommendation votes. Thank you for Yumi Leng 2 recommendation votes. Thank you for Ni GGR 5 recommendation votes. Thank you for Gia's Howking Pinfu 3 recommendation votes. Thank you for ZUIUB 2 recommendation votes. Thank you for Long Long 5 recommendation votes. Thank you for not serving me 4 recommendation votes. Thank you for FeezyMO 4 recommendation votes. Thank you for Ski 2 recommendation votes. Thank you for you 4 recommendation votes. Thank you for the Flash of the Rainy Night 6 recommendation votes. Thank you for the Search for Clouds and Years 2 recommendation votes. Thank you for Book Friend 160,922,104,621,506 3 recommendation votes. Thank you for the Zizuka 6 recommendation votes. Thank you for the Young Men Who Often Read Novels 3 recommendation votes. Thank you for the Italian Noodles 1 recommendation vote. Thank you for the Yeah Ding Ding 1 recommendation vote. Thank you for the Candle West Window Rain 1 recommendation vote. Thank you for the Leatherface 1 recommendation vote. Thank you for the Happiness Zoyang 1 recommendation vote. Thank you for the WS Blue Fox 1 recommendation vote. Thank you for the Rain Floating Cloud 3 recommendation votes. Thank you for the 2 recommendation votes of Leland Tarshan. Thank you for the Midnight Blood Thief 8 recommendation votes. Thank you for the Heartsea Creed 5 recommendation votes. Chapter 40. Troops appear. Link crossed his arms and looked coldly, while Nick blamed Link for what he did this time, pointed his index finger at the ground, and said sternly, "From today on, this land can no longer accommodate you. You will be captured all over the world, and like Banner, you can only do hard labor and barely live in anonymity. Even Tony will be implicated, because of your reckless actions, because he is your guardian." Link took Zelda's hand indifferently, and was indifferent to Nick's words. Link said in a deep voice, "Zelda is the princess of the Kingdom of Hyrule. Your country's army attacked our national leader without reason. Have you thought about this problem? No need to say more, just go ahead and start a war." Natasha burst out laughing at the sight. A country of 2 people, a princess and a knight, and the whole country is aristocratic class. Link has been ready since he decided to kill Ross. Going against the whole world for one person is not a choice for Link. The last thing Link lacks is courage. Nick nodded seriously. "What you said makes sense. I know you don't want the situation to become as bad as I said, right?" Link was stunned and saw Nick suddenly smile, revealing his original cunning look. "How about you do us Shield another favor? Although you have done extremely bad things, I'm willing to take on tremendous pressure and help you deal with Ross's affairs. How about it?" Link raised his eyebrows. Nick's foxtail was finally exposed. Link suddenly realized. Zelda said, "So you didn't come here to blame Link, but for something else? What else?" Natasha looked at her perfectly manicured nails and glanced at Nick. "If we really want to be your enemy, we will just send the army to attack without saying a word. How is it possible that the boss and I, just 2 people, drive here to cause trouble for Link? No, we'll get beaten." Natasha jumped to Link's side in one step, then faced Nick, but said to Zelda, "If he dares to let me do such an idiotic task to die, I will immediately turn against you and capture this bold guy as a token of my allegiance to you." Then she made a lady's salute to Zelda. "When the time comes, Princess, are you willing to take in an ordinary female soldier like me? In this way, the population of the Kingdom of Hyrule will increase by 50%. Zelda smiled. Link hesitated. "Nick, can you help me solve Ross's problem?" Nick coughed and said, "Although it is very difficult and will offend many people, I'm willing to do it for you because I believe in you." Nick's expression changed very quickly. He misjudged Link 1 minute and said he believed Link the next minute. Then he narrowed his eyes. "Shield, and I will pay a lot for you and will bear a lot of pressure. So, isn't it easy to ask you to do something for us?" Natasha snorted barely audibly. Nick said it seriously, as if he had paid a great price for Link. In fact, he was bullying Link for not knowing the inside story. Ross is a lunatic, a paranoid who conducts extreme scientific experiments regardless of the consequences. He is so crazy that he wants to mass produce monsters like the Hulk. He has already made countless enemies. If Link kills Ross, many people in the parliament will applaud. Shield only needs to mediate. There is a dead body of Abomination at the scene anyway, so they can say that Ross was killed by Abomination. In this way, they can easily help Link solve the problem. It is not as difficult as Nick said. Link looked around and found no signs of lurking troops around. He also saw through Nick's tricks, so he asked, "Tell me, what can I do for you?" Nick didn't say what he needed to do to get rid of Link, but confirmed first. Are you really willing to help us? Are you sure? Link nodded. Nick and Natasha looked at each other, both a little nervous, and said, now, in New York, a centaur has appeared, and you need to deal with it. Centaur. Centaur. No wonder Natasha and Nick were so nervous. Centaur, the strongest monster in the game, appeared on Earth, and in New York. The suffering people of New York have another big worry. Sending off the Blood Moon, and welcoming the Hulk. Sending off the Hulk, and welcoming the Centaur. This luck is really amazing. Natasha murmured, I've heard you say before, that the centaurs are strong, but I didn't expect them to be this strong. We at SHIELD really have no other options, so we want to ask you for help. This is a very risky matter. The scene of the centaurs destroying more than a dozen heavy tanks with a sweep was still vivid in Nick's mind. Nick asked again, are you really willing to fight the centaurs? Nick was actually quite distressed about Link. Link did provide SHIELD with a lot of information on the habits and weaknesses of various monsters, which helped them a lot. But some of Link's suggestions made Nick very angry. The centaur's weakness is the head. Shoot them in the head with an arrow to stun them, then ride on the back of the centaurs and chop them hard. Shoot them in the head with an arrow. Can ordinary people stun them with a headshot? Ride on the back of a centaurs and chop them hard. Can you ride a centaurs just like you say? If a centaur attacks, dodge it by sidestepping. If it lunges forward, dodge it by backflipping. If it charges forward with a weapon, and attack it from behind. If it slams its weapon into the ground, while it is raising its weapon. You said it so easily. Are you kidding me? Indeed, Link honestly shared his precious experience in dealing with Centaur, but this experience is applicable to him directly. Others would be at a loss if they saw it, and would die on the spot if they imitated it. When Nick saw the Centaur destroying a regular army on its own, he looked at the advice Link gave him. He immediately thought, you sound so good, then you go ahead. So Nick and Natasha came to find Link together, and they were afraid that Link would refuse. After all, this request was not as simple as asking Link to buy Roger's coffee last time, but it was to let Link face a terrible fighting monster, which was life-threatening. Nick silently thanked General Ross in his heart. Thank you. You did me a favor for nothing. In fact, Nick and Natasha's worries were unnecessary. Even if they don't come to find Link, as long as Link hears about the centaurs, he will come all the way to fight the centaurs. Link loves fighting centaurs. Thrilling and exciting. Nick just finished talking about the centaurs, and thought Link would think about it carefully. As a result, Link grabbed Natasha's wrist and shouted, go, go, go. Where are the centaurs? Take me to find the centaurs. Nick, help me prepare a bow and arrow, a long sword, and 3 shields. Thank you for your support, fellow book friends. This work is currently ranked 6th in the recommended position this week. The previous works are either 170,000 or 200,000 words, or level 5 writers. It is difficult for me, a level 1 writer with 70,000 words, to compare with others, but I still want to compare. I will add more chapters today. Even if the collection is not as good as others, the number of updated words must exceed this. I hope everyone can continue to support this book. If you haven't added it to your collection, please add it to your collection. Thank you for your support with 100 Kidian coins. Thank you Zinhazenshio for 5 recommendation votes. Thank you Zioniwu for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Minecrafter for 4 recommendations. Thanks to Zio for 6 recommendations. Thanks to Bookfriend 20180816135726766141 recommendation. Thanks to Aoliris for 6 recommendations. Thanks to Bookfriend 15,120,708,252,129 for 13 recommendations. Thanks to ClownXX for 1 recommendation. Thanks to Devouring King for 4 recommendations. Thanks to Kissay for 7 recommendations. Thanks to Young Man Does Not Know the Taste of Sorrow for 13 recommendations. Thanks to Final Battle Humanoid for 1 recommendation. Thanks to SSGSNLZ for 1 recommendation. Thanks to Shenke for 4 recommendations. Thanks to Attack of Soap, 4 recommendations. Thanks to Darkstar Dark for 8 recommendations. Thanks to Big Love for 1 recommendation. Thanks to Big One for 1 recommendation. Thanks to bookfriend 1506161923294633 recommendations. Thanks to N Pride in the Bones, 4 recommendations. Thanks to Yun Mengan 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to the old man who talks nonsense for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Yi Ezekiel for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to bookfriend 15101113354667 for 1 recommendation votes. Thanks to Kanksameng, I can't type the rest of the words, for 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to Anrix for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Barlomx for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Duan Iwii for 7 recommendation votes. Thanks to Jairashisho for 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to DNT*WW for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Hibabazi for 6 recommendation votes. Chapter 41 Heroes, 4th update today. It was already night, but Link still didn't go to fight the people right away. Instead, Natasha led him to a residence under the jurisdiction of S.H.I.E.L.D. to rest. Nick helped Link deal with the matter of killing Ross overnight. No matter how crazy Ross was, he was an American officer. He was killed by people without borders in his own country. In principle, the US government could not tolerate such a thing and would avenge him at any means. Of course, it was just a principle. In reality, there was still a lot of room for maneuver. Nick contacted several senior officials in succession, even explained the situation to the president, and called Tony. He was busy all night and had no time to rest. Finally, he helped Link to settle the matter. Nick was actually a little angry in his heart. Ross was too extreme. Nick knew Link very well. He had justice in his heart and was willing to protect the weak. Like Captain America, he was a very pure and kind person. As S.H.I.E.L.D., he was in charge of abnormal events and abnormal personnel around the world. Nick defined Link as having strength, knowing how to control, being gentle and not greedy, having justice in his heart, and being a person who is easy to get along with. Just like the Australian outback tapir, it has the most terrible snake venom in the world, but it has a gentle personality and a record of 0 kills. Possessing a sharp weapon and knowing how to control himself, Link has the potential of a superhero. He is also the most ideal Avenger in Nick's heart, on par with Captain America. And Ross can actually make Link angry like this. What level is this? This is a level of assassinating Archduke Ferdinand and triggering a war. This is really unexpected for Nick. In his heart, he is still complaining about this dead old man. You think Link is also the boyfriend of your unlucky daughter, so he dare not fight you, right? If Link becomes hostile to the United States because of this, then Nick can only cry and establish a big enemy for no reason. Are you afraid if Link bounces the nuclear bomb back to you with a shield counter? Even if Link does not help fight the Centaur, Nick will settle this matter for Link, at least for peace. Many influential people that Nick contacted at night expressed their confusion. No matter what the reason, Link openly killed our officers in our country. This is a challenge to our authority. He killed people. He is a thug. He should be shot. This is a matter of principle. Nick smiled bitterly. These words were almost exactly the same as Nick's previous accusations against Link. But even he himself could not agree with it. Nick patiently explained. Have you seen this farce with your own eyes? Link, like the previous Blood Moon Chaos, defeated 2 monsters alone, subdued one and killed the other together, and used his life to defend the safety of New York citizens. After that, he was attacked by Ross without authorization. It was Ross's reckless and extreme behavior that forced Link to fight back. You have to forgive this exhausted hero who fought against 2 monsters. Things were not that bad. Ross and his army stood by and watched during this disaster, and then after the disaster, attacked the young hero who ended the disaster. If we continue to target Link and force him, and continue to be so arrogant, overbearing and unreasonable, we will only make the same mistake as Ross. Create some unnecessary conflicts. If a person is considered a threat and wants to be eliminated just because he is too powerful, isn't this a manifestation of discrimination? I, Nick Fury, swear on my life that Link is safe and harmless. I have called Link a hero more than once, and this is exactly how I evaluate Link. Please trust my judgment on abnormal people. Nick spent the whole night trying his best to solve this matter. When he made the last call, the sun had risen the next day, and more people began to appear on the streets. The strong and unyielding people of New York were still busy with their lives with confidence after the monster battle last night. There were 2 knocks outside the office door, and Hawkeye, wearing sunglasses, walked in. Hawkeye said, "Boss, you have a lot of dark circles under your eyes." Nick groaned tiredly, "I'm black, so I don't have dark circles under my eyes. But your left eye hasn't healed yet?" Hawkeye took off his sunglasses in frustration, and saw a big purple hole in his left eye socket. His originally cool and stern expression now looked a little funny under the dark circles under his left eye. Hawkeye said, "Don't mention it." On the night of the blood moon, Hawkeye stood there and waited for 4 hours. When the stone monster came out, Hawkeye could pull a 250-pound strongbow and was very strong, so he lifted the stone monster. As a result, there were 2 stone monsters at the scene. When Hawkeye was happy, the other one suddenly punched Hawkeye's left eye. The injury to his left eye has not subsided until now. Hawkeye said, "I heard from Natasha that Link killed Ross last night, and you are helping him to settle the storm." Nick asked, "Do you think Link did the right thing?" Hawkeye crossed his arms and said, "It's not right or wrong. If it was me who replaced Link, and that bastard dared to attack my wife, I would do the same thing." Although the words were cool, but with a bruised left eye as a backdrop, it was funny, no matter how you looked at it. Nick nodded, "That's fine. Link deserves our trust. By the way, did Natasha take Link and others to fight the centaurs?" Hawkeye nodded, and Nick asked, "Barton, why didn't you follow them?" Hawkeye pointed to his bruised left eye. "Do I have the nerve to follow them like this, Nick?" Then Hawkeye rubbed his head, feeling a little distressed. "Natasha lent my bow and arrow to Link without permission, and I was embarrassed to refuse. Link, you know, any weapon will explode. I didn't have the heart to go over and see it." Nick laughed. Link, in a jeep driven by Natasha, and Zelda headed to the area where the centaurs appeared. Zelda looked at Link flipping through the store with his notebook in his hand and asked, "What are you looking for?" Link pressed enter and pointed to the motorcycle on the web page. Zelda said, "Ah, you want a motorcycle? Actually, I discussed with Tony before, and I want to make you a handsome exclusive motorcycle with many powerful functions." Natasha looked at the rear view mirror and said, "Link, at your age, it is illegal to ride a motorcycle on the road." Link was unwilling. "I'm over 100 years old." Haha. Natasha sneered. "Do you think the American police will believe your nonsense, Link?" Zelda also said, "But Tony doesn't have a pilot's license either." Natasha said, That's because there are no relevant laws on flying armor." Zelda clapped her hands and smiled. "That's good. I'll get Link a flying motorcycle later." Natasha, "Thank you for supporting my work. Welcome to Collect and Recommend. The 4th update. If this book performs well, I will not let you down, and I will update it with this amount in the future." Thank you for the 500 starting coins reward support from Lily Water Bottle. Thank you for the 2 recommendation votes from Helex Girl. Thank you for Begin 1235 recommendation votes. Thanks to Shanna for 4 recommendations. Thanks to RHPK for 9 recommendations. Thanks to T for 1 recommendation. Thanks to This Username Does Not Exist for 1232 recommendations. Thanks to Muayangs for 2 recommendations. Thanks to Bookfriend 16122208560483661 recommendations. Thanks to Bookfriend 201807062004333741 recommendations. Thanks to Kahei for 1 recommendation. Thanks to Boring Pit Teammates for 1 recommendation. Thanks to 41 recommendation. Thanks to 44 recommendations. Thanks to Bookfriend 201809062331086631 recommendations. Thanks to 44 recommendations. Thanks to 45 recommendations. Thanks to 48 recommendations. Thanks to Bookfriend 1608241006248342 recommendations. Thanks to TZL for 6 recommendations. Thanks to the Bookfriend 1607282301500552 recommendation votes. Thanks to Desserts Full of Fish for 2 recommendation votes. Chapter 42, Encountering Captain America. Link lowered his head to play the game console, and from time to time he heard the sound of pick up from inside. Feeling that the car was a little shaky, he looked up and asked Natasha, "Where is your sports car?" Natasha replied, "Oh, I didn't drive it." Link was puzzled, and Natasha smiled. "My salary is very small. If someone gets excited during the fight against the centaur and uses my car as a weapon, I will be very distressed. Of course, a mere jeep is nothing. And the jeep is the property of SHIELD." Zelda rubbed her brows and raised her head, saying, "Chinese is so hard to learn." Link was shocked. "Why are you learning Chinese?" Zelda smiled and said, "Don't you think it's interesting? There are so many languages in this world. It's not like the Hyrule continent, where there is only one common language. The country I traveled to used Portuguese, but here they speak English. It's really interesting." Natasha smiled and said, "Then why don't you learn Russian?" Zelda replied in clear Russian, "I've learned it." Natasha couldn't believe it. "My god. What other languages do you know?" Zelda thought, French, German, Spanish. Natasha talked to Zelda in other languages, and Zelda responded in the corresponding language. Natasha had nothing to say. As a top-level agent, Natasha also knew many languages, but she spent many years trying to remember them. How could a genius girl like Zelda take learning languages as an interest? Natasha said, "Maybe you Hyrule people with long ears are born with a talent for languages." "Link, what about you?" Link nodded, and so did he. "Let's not talk about English. I took Portuguese lessons on the plane, and I could barely communicate after getting off the plane. When I chat with Zelda, most of the time, Zelda speaks. I use the common language of Hyrule, Hylian." Natasha was depressed and had nothing to say to the two genius boys. She was driving quietly. At this time, from Link's backpack, a Yahaha crawled out. Peppa yawned and said, "Good morning, brave man, princess." Peppa spoke Hylian, babbling. Natasha watched Peppa jumping and greeting Link and Zelda through the rearview mirror. She liked it very much and asked, "Where did you find this pet?" Zelda shook her head. "This is not a pet, but a resident of the Kralo forest. According to records, it was originally an ordinary human, but later, I don't know what happened. It became like this. It feels quite interesting." Natasha's eyes turned cold. Could it be the product of biological experiments? As an agent, Natasha's first thought was this kind of dark thing. Zelda was at a loss. As for the origin of Yahaha, when she was a child, she listened to the old king story as a fairy tale. Now that Natasha guessed, the fairy tale suddenly became obscure. Yahaha itself is a shy creature, and Peppa is very sensitive. Feeling that Natasha seems to be difficult to mess with, she quickly locked herself in Link's arms and said in a trembling voice, "Brave sir, this woman is so scary." Link has been concentrating on catching the Pokemon and didn't care. He rubbed Peppa's head as a comfort. Natasha looked at the rearview mirror with her eyes, thinking, what is the body structure of this strange creature? Link raised his head, looked at Natasha and said, "Don't have any ideas about Peppa." Natasha was surprised. "Why do you have such an idea?" Then she felt weak in her heart. "Link, this child is so sensitive. Hiding ability is the lifeline of an agent. Black Widow has always been very secretive. It is difficult to judge her true feelings from the clues on her appearance. Therefore, Black Widow is most afraid of a type of people. This type of people has a very accurate premonition. They don't need information or data. They can guess the truth with just a vague feeling. They are so sharp that it is difficult to explain clearly. Link seems to be this kind of person." The red light at the intersection ahead. Black Widow stopped the car. At this time, the sound of a motorcycle engine came from the side. A strong rider stopped beside the car, opened his helmet, and revealed the face of Captain America. Link raised his head and pressed the window. Roger smiled and greeted. "What a coincidence. I ran into you." "Natasha, hello." Although smiling, Roger seemed depressed. Link knew that Rogers was trapped in a huge sense of loss caused by the gap between the times. Link also experienced this feeling. When fighting, he may not think too much, but once it is late at night and there is nothing to do, this cruel sense of reality tearing will slowly spread from the heart to the whole body to the fingertips like rot, so that he can't sleep all night. Natasha turned around and smiled. "I'm going to take the two little guys to the countryside for a picnic, and by the way, we are going to kill a monster." Rogers looked at Link, and Link nodded. Roger smiled and said, Take me with you. I might be able to help you. Although there are many entertainments in modern cities, Rogers has nothing to do, and all his friends are dead. He saw Link's profile in the car from a distance, and saw his only acquaintance, so he rode a motorcycle over, wanting to chat for a few words to relieve his loneliness. As a result, when he heard that there was another battle, he became interested. It's not that Rogers likes fighting so much, but as a soldier, Rogers can only fight in this strange era. Whether it's hitting a sandbag or hitting a skeleton, it's the same. He doesn't want to fall into a kind of emptiness with nothing to do. Otherwise, in the emptiness, the confusion of facing reality will swallow up his heart. Even if this heart is the strongest in the world. Natasha was still hesitating, and Link immediately smiled and said, "Okay. There is another vibranium shield to use." So Rogers parked his motorcycle on the side of the road and got on the passenger seat of Natasha's car. There was one more person in the team, and Link introduced Zelda and Peppa to Rogers. Peppa felt that this strong man had a similar temperament to Link, so he was much more enthusiastic than he was to Natasha, and waved his little hand. "Hey, my name is Peppa." Rogers blinked. He didn't understand Peppa's alien language, but he could guess what Peppa was doing, so he introduced himself seriously. "My name is Steven Rogers." Peppa said, "You are so tall." Rogers hesitated and said, "I'm glad to meet you too." Peppa shook the leaves in his hand. "Can you play hide and seek?" Rogers smiled. "Yes, I'm out for a ride." Peppa shook his little hand down. "I like to hide under the rocks." Rogers nodded. "Yes, I prefer running to riding a motorcycle." So, Zelda, Link, and Natasha watched in amazement as two guys who didn't speak the same language, each talking about their own things, were completely on different channels, and actually started chatting happily. They didn't stop, and chatted all the way to their destination. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your enthusiastic support. I have moved from 6th place to 4th place. Thank you all. If nothing unexpected happens today, there will be 4 updates. At least 3 updates. I hope you can continue to support my work. Thank you for Lily Aquarius's 400 starting coins. Thank you for your handsome attitudes 100 book coins. Thank you for PTRRTP's 1 recommendation vote. Thank you for Fengchu's 3 recommendation votes. Thank you for Bookfriend 201801151312396312 recommendation votes. Thank you for Danjiang Sijian's 3 recommendation votes. Thank you for Charlie Brown's 3 recommendation votes. Thank you for Going to See It's 3 recommendation votes. Thank you for Chunai's 3 recommendation votes. Thank you for Fat Dana 6 recommendation votes. Thank you for Fallen Angel's Eyes 3 recommendation votes. Thank you for Y9,979,287,735 recommendation votes. Thank you for Lust, Caution Fleet's 3 recommendation votes. Thank you for Makehouse Fat Ears 2 recommendation votes. Thank you for Demon Pterosaurs 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to the rookie version of At for 2 recommendations. Thanks to the old couple for 4 recommendations. Thanks to Inthk Bingpo for 4 recommendations. Thanks to Beji 1235 recommendations. Thanks to Barlomx for 2 recommendations. Thanks to N Bride in the Bones, 4 recommendations. Thanks to Crazy for Cats, 3 recommendations. Thanks to Khalid for 1 recommendation. Thanks to Lonely Zootan for 1 recommendation. Thanks to Handsome Attitude for 3 recommendations. Thanks to the White and Black Sage for 1 recommendation. Thanks to Shulayan Sao for 2 recommendations. Thanks to Long Long for 5 recommendations. Thanks to Broken Wings for You for 7 recommendations. Thanks to Cheyenne Wang Hubeo Temple for 4 recommendations. Thanks to Devouring the King for 4 recommendations. Thanks to Bookfriend 1506161923294633 recommendations. Chapter 43 Fierce Battle Between Troops and Horses. Natasha stopped the car at a messy plain and found a sign that said beasts ahead. Danger, she said. The large area ahead is where the centaurs are. Link got out of the car and went to the trunk to take out 3 bows, 3 swords, and 3 shields. Now his weapon space can only store 1 piece of equipment. He plans to put the other weapons and shields on the ground and use them whenever he wants. As for Captain America's vibranium shield, Link was disappointed. How could he carry a shield with him when he came out on a motorcycle? If he needed it, Link might have to give a shield to Rogers. Natasha also took out a sniper rifle and said to Rogers with a smile, "Can you help me carry the gun over?" So the four of them, walked forward carefully. Link walked in front, 10 meters ahead of the others. If the centaurs attacked, Link would be the first to be hit. Zelda brought a camera and hung it around her neck to take pictures left and right. Yaha stood on Roger's shoulder and used a sand hammer to yell Yaha. Link's ears moved and he felt the ground shaking slightly and whispered, "The centaurs are coming." Natasha quickly set up her sniper rifle, crouched and waited. Peepa screamed oh, looking a little scared. A black shadow appeared in the distance, quickly expanding and galloping. A huge centaur with brown and red hair rushed over with amazing momentum. Peepa was so scared that he hugged his head and shrank back, still shouting in a weak voice, "Come on, brave man." Link held the sword and hurriedly distanced himself from the team. He stuck the sword into the ground, raised the weapons and shields behind him, and scattered them around. Link picked up the bow and shot, and the arrows flew out in clusters, but the centaur suddenly lowered his head and easily dodged it, then crouched and charged. The deterrent effect caused by the centaur's impact was even greater than that of a train hitting it head on. Everyone was worried about Link. Zelda looked at the centaurs with concern. The centaurs in the Marvel world were quite different from those in Hyrule, and they were even more ferocious and ugly. Natasha lay down, grabbed the sniper rifle, and shot a bullet that missed, cursing. Link's eyes were fixed on the centaur's movements. When the horse's hoof was about to step on his body, Link seized the opportunity and dodged in a flash of bullet time. Then he rushed up and attacked fiercely with the sword, bang 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 several times in a row. Natasha screamed. It turns out that Link's strategy can really be realized. She thought that what Link said, "just dodge with a sideways dodge when the monster rushes over," was just a casual talk. Although she knew Link's strength, Natasha was still shocked when Link really dodged and seized the opportunity to attack without a hair's breadth. Peppa cheered, yeah, come on, brave man." Zelda was not happy at all, but her face became more worried, because she saw that Link's attack just now did not cause much damage to the centaur. The centaur in the Marvel world has also become much stronger. The centaur jumped up with its front hooves and slammed the ground with its giant sword. Link quickly sprinted behind the centaur, and the ground shook with a crackling dust. Link jumped up, grabbed the hair on the centaur's butt, jumped onto its back, grabbed the mane, and chopped it at its neck. The centaur screamed and struggled. During this time, Natasha fired again, hitting the centaur's chest, but the bullet penetrated the centaur's hair and there was no movement, and even no blood flowed out. Natasha whispered, "The hair is quite thick. It seems that I have to aim at the eyes." Link was quickly thrown off. Rogers rushed up at this time, picked up a shield, and threw it hard, as if it were a frisbee, hitting the centaur's head. The centaur roared, and looked at Rogers with cold and violent eyes. Rogers spread his hands. "Hey, it's not good to have such a bad temper." His adaptability to this kind of creature has also increased a lot. The centaur was about to charge, but there was an explosion behind him, and a turbulent dust and airflow. Link stepped on the shield, leaped into the air, drew his bow and shot an arrow, and the arrow hit the centaur in a flash. The centaur's huge body tilted diagonally. Link jumped down, grabbed the hilt of the sword with both hands, and stabbed the centaur with all his strength. Bang! The sword exploded. Link cursed inwardly. He had wrongly blamed Tony before. It was not that Tony's weapon was not durable. The weapons made by others were actually worse. At this moment, the centaur used a shield to knock Link out. Ugh. Link lost 2 health points immediately and rolled on the ground for a long distance, rolling around. When he stood up, the centaur roared and raised his body, spitting out flames from his mouth. The hot flames rushed over like a black mamba. Link rolled over and tried his best to dodge, but even so, the flames ignited the corners of his clothes. Rogers was speechless. "He can also spit fire." Link rolled over and put out the fire. At this time, the centaur roared and rushed forward with a huge sword in his hand, sweeping across. Link turned his hand, turned his body, and hit the shield to counter. With a bang, the centaur's body stiffened, and Link jumped up, pounced on it, grabbed the centaur's neck hair, swung his body, and sat on the centaur's back again. At this moment, there was no sword in his hand, so Link had to draw an arrow and use it as a dagger to stab the centaur's neck. The centaur quickly reached behind his back to grab Link, but he only grabbed a round bomb. Bang! It exploded, and Link flew out on the shield. Roger saw the right position, jumped high, reached out to catch Link, held the princess in his arms, and smiled. "You always fly around." Link struggled to stand up and said, "I don't want to either." He rolled over and picked up a big sword on the ground. The centaur had already charged again. Link growled and used his shield to counter again. Rogers also rushed forward and jumped up, using the shield as a blunt weapon, hitting the centaur's head with his elbow. Link rushed to the side of the centaur's body, swung the big sword above his head, and attacked the centaur in a series of attacks. When Link was almost exhausted, he shouted and chopped it down vertically. Finally, a bloody wound appeared on the centaur's body. When Link was gasping for breath, Zelda exclaimed, "Be careful." The centaur's tail swung and swept Link, sweeping him out directly. Peeper exclaimed, "The brave man has flown away." At this moment, the centaurs set their sights on the other 3 people on the battlefield. Suddenly, the 3 people and a forest elf broke out in cold sweat. This was the first time they faced the pressure of the centaurs without Link. Natasha looked up and murmured, "Damn. If Link was not there, the hostility of the centaurs would be transferred to them." The pressure immediately came to Rogers. Rogers took a deep breath and shouted in a deep voice, "Now, your opponent is me." The shield blocked in front of his chest. Second update. Welcome everyone to vote and collect a support. Thank you Zion Iwu for 1 recommendation vote. Thank you 123 recommendation votes. Thank you King Kong Indestructible Body for 4 recommendation votes. Thank you Shipio Chang Khan for 10 recommendation votes. Thank you Orangefly for 1231 recommendation votes. Thank you Bookfriend 201702611225376661 recommendation votes. Thank you Minecrafter for 4 recommendation votes. Thank you Zinhakreed for 5 recommendation votes. Thanks to Bookfriend 201807062004333741 votes. Thanks to Charlie Brown 3 votes. Thanks to Lance the Gentleman 3 votes. Thanks to Bighead 1 vote. Thanks to Halex Girl 2 votes. Thanks to Whose Boy Are You 2 votes. Thanks to Risky 560 1 vote. Thanks to UO Pasta 1 vote. Thanks to Tuxon PO 4 votes. Thanks to ZUIUK 2 votes. Thanks to Evening Breeze Canyon 4 votes. Thanks to Luan King Steamaro 2 votes. Chapter 44 Cavalry Battle. Third update. Link was thrown into the sky by the centaur. Seeing the ground getting smaller and smaller, Link recalled the tragedy of falling from the air without any precautions when he first came here. Link never wanted to see that happen again. Fortunately, he is no longer the same as before. After Link felt that he began to fall in the air, he put the shield under his feet and continuously detonated bombs to act as a force to reduce the fall. Link seemed to step on the stairs, sliding to the ground, and the shield died and exploded. Link hurriedly ran back. It was too dangerous to leave Zelda and others on the battlefield. Although Captain America and Black Widow are masters with close to perfect combat skills, martial arts alone are useless when facing Centaur. The Centaur threw Link far away. Link passed by a farm and found a black horse in the farm, chewing rotten leaves and wagging its tail boredly. Because of the presence of people and horses, all the residents fled. This horse was probably abandoned here by its owner when he fled in a hurry. Fortunately, there were many unharvested green vegetables here, so the horse would not starve to death. When Link saw the horse, his eyes lit up. Riding a horse was much faster than running. So Link rushed over, jumped up, and sat on the horse's back. Hiss. The black horse was furious when he saw a guy who didn't know how to live or die coming up to ride him. He struggled desperately and tried to throw Link off his back. While shaking, Link tried to comfort the black horse, thinking, this horse has such a bad temper, maybe the owner made him unhappy, so he kicked his hoof and ran out to find freedom. Even the fastest horse in Hyrule, Link has tamed it. This ordinary horse in the Marvel world is naturally no problem. In 3 seconds, he subdued the black horse, and it turned around like admitting defeat. Link patted the horse's neck to show his affection. Then he patted the horse's butt lightly, and the black horse neighed and ran forward. Link's horse riding skills were very good, and he fully unleashed the speed of the black horse. It galloped like a whirlwind in the deserted farmland, galloping freely. In the blink of an eye, it was back to the battlefield. Link shouted, "Princess." Then he saw Natasha running with Zelda, and Rogers used his shield to resist the centaur's giant sword, but was knocked away. The centaur kept swinging weapons and smashing Natasha and Zelda. In a hurry, Link drove his horse forward, stepped on the horse's back, and jumped up suddenly, aiming at the centaur and shooting an arrow. The arrow flew through the air, successfully hitting the centaur and stiffening it, and the giant sword fell heavily at Natasha's feet. The Black Widow was still panting, looking at Link running towards her, and trembling. Our little hero is finally back. The centaur got up again, and Natasha hurriedly took Zelda away. Rogers, who was knocked away, had his shield holding right arm broken. He sat up with a grin, ready to continue attacking the centaur. Even if he broke a bone, he couldn't let the two girls face the centaur. But when he barely stood up, he saw Link arriving in time, so he sat down again with relief, panting, "I can only rely on you." Like Link, the centaur was also a silent guy. He stood up and blocked his head with a shield, staring at Link riding his horse in a circle. Seeing that the real opponent had arrived again, the centaur didn't care about others. Link circled around looking for an opportunity to attack the centaur, but the centaur guarded his head to prevent Link from shooting arrows. Link turned around and didn't find an opportunity, so he grabbed the mane and picked up a sword on the ground. Seeing that the black horse seemed to be afraid of the centaur and was a little manic, he stroked the mane and said, "It's okay, we will win." After the black horse calmed down, Link shouted loudly and drove the black horse to sprint towards the centaur. The centaur also rushed towards Link, dragging the giant sword, drawing an arc from bottom to top. The two riders, one big and one small, were about to collide. The three people who were watching from a safe distance couldn't help but stop breathing, wondering what the outcome of this head-on collision would be. The strong wind of the opponent's weapon faced Link. Link lowered his head and dodged the giant sword. In an instant, his body center of gravity stretched out and slashed with the sword. With the help of the black horse's momentum, the blade broke through the centaur's fur and cut a long wound on its abdomen. The two crossed in the blink of an eye. This time Link took the lead. Pepper shouted, "Oh, come on, brave man." The centaur and Link turned around at the same time. Link dismounted, picked up a shield, and then remounted. His hand stroked the horse's neck to comfort it, but his eyes were fixed on this huge enemy. After adjusting his breathing, the two rushed towards each other again. Just as the two crossed, the centaur swung down the giant sword, twisted his wrist, deflected the blade, and slapped with the sword face, increasing the attack range many times. Link hurriedly used his shield to block, but this time he failed to counter the shield. Link was slapped off the horse's back by the centaur. Link's shield was broken, and his body was stressed. He felt so heavy that he couldn't breathe, and there was a whistling wind in his ears. Fortunately, after defeating Hulk, he increased his health and strength, otherwise he really couldn't withstand the centaur's slap. If Link hadn't loosened his legs from the horse's belly just now, he would have taken the black horse flying and killed. Rogers learned from last time, aimed at the position where Link fell, hurried forward, and caught it with one hand. Link looked at the blood flowing from the palm of his hand holding the shield, and the horse's hooves rushed like a flood. Rogers said, "Can you still hold on?" Link's eyes were focused, of course. Rogers jumped away, and Link rolled to avoid the centaur's impact. Link stood up, and saw that the centaur had stabilized its body. Its stern eyes never left Link's figure, and it rushed over again. Link turned and ran, but the centaur behind him chased him relentlessly, spitting out pillars of fire from its mouth to attack Link. Link dodged in a somewhat embarrassing manner, and was almost hit by a pillar of fire. He quickly stopped and dodged. Then, the centaur took the opportunity to smash down with a huge sword. If it hit, Link would be injured more than just the tiger's mouth. In a hurry, Link blew a whistle fiercely, and the black horse neighed and rushed forward without hesitation. Link was overjoyed. Good horse. He did a backflip and got on the horse. Finally, he escaped in a dangerous situation. He picked up the sword and threw it out, which exploded into pieces on the centaur's face. Link bent down and picked up the last sword again. While the centaur was stiff, he approached at the maximum speed and jumped hard, landing on the centaur's head. Link used all his strength and placed all the stakes of victory and defeat on this attack. Ha! The long sword pierced into the centaur's brain. The centaur roared, but Link didn't give him any chance. He shook the hilt of the sword with both hands, and then pulled out the blood-red and sticky long sword, but the centaur's brain was already a mess. No strength to stand up. Link jumped down and stood in front of the centaur's neck. The long sword shook his hand. The durability of the last sword could only support the last attack, but it was enough. Holding the sword with both hands, he aimed at the centaur's neck. Execution. With a move of his hand, the centaur was beheaded by Link. In this battle, Link won. Welcome to collect and vote for support. There is one more chapter before 12 o'clock. Thank you Lily Shooping for your support of 300 starting coins. Thank you for the recommendation of the old man who is talking nonsense for 3 votes. Thank you for 1 recommendation vote from SSGSNLZ. Thank you for not serving me for 4 recommendation votes. Thank you for 2 recommendation votes from Douglas Zianaugil Yishi. Thanks to Spitfire for 9 recommendations. Thanks to Yezikiel for 2 recommendations. Thanks to Gudgeon and Washeng Feng for 3 recommendations. Thanks to Shenke for 4 recommendations. Thanks to Pest1105 recommendations. Thanks to you 3 recommendations. Thanks to Mineral06 for 4 recommendations. Thanks to ClownXX for 1 recommendation. Thanks to Bookfriend201801151312396312 recommendations. Thanks to Association Big Brother for 2 recommendations. Thanks to Myoses for 3 recommendations. Thanks to Space Star for 3 recommendations. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 45 Ice Maker, 4th update. Link slashed with his sword, and the centaur exploded into a cloud of black smoke and disappeared. The goddess Hylia's whispers rang in his ears again. Brave style training, complete. Defeat the centaur, gain a skill. Ice Maker. In the game, the Ice Maker can erect a rectangular icicle in the water. It's a very convenient skill. I wonder what kind of wonderful effect it will have in the Marvel world. But for several consecutive times, it didn't trigger the awakening of the hero, which made Link a little disappointed. The black smoke dissipated, leaving only Link, who was still panting at the scene, and 3 golden fruits. Link paid attention to the centaur because of the Cyclops dropping the life Turian. Unexpectedly, the centaur also dropped objects, but the objects dropped looked a little familiar. Link picked up the 3 slightly smelly golden fruits and suddenly realized that this was the fruit of Chloro! This kind of fruit unique to Yahaha can provide Link with additional weapon space. Link always damages his weapons because of his excessive strength. In a fight, 8 or 10 weapons are rotated, and they are used one after another, relying on the weapon space obtained by using the Chloro fruit. Link waved to Peppa, and Peppa flew to Link with the leaf helicopter, followed by Zelda and others. Peppa saw the fruit in Link's hand and exclaimed, "Oh, my brave hero, this is the Chloro fruit." Natasha was a little alert. "What is this?" "Because this thing stinks." It reminds Natasha of the durian that Link steamed in the shield building. Zelda said, "It is a fruit of Peppa's race that can help Link provide weapon space." You also saw that Link can put his weapon back into a small space of his own and take it out at any time. Rogers rubbed his shoulders and said, "That means that, although Link is empty-handed, he can always use weapons to fight, right? What a magical ability." Rogers is only good at shields, while Natasha can use all kinds of weapons. She immediately imagined the terrible scene when Link had multiple weapon spaces. At first he would fight you with a knife, and when he turned around, the thing in his hand turned into a chain, and when he turned around again, it turned into a dagger. In other words, Link's next move is always unpredictable. Natasha never wants to face such an opponent. Peppa stood on Link's palm, looking left and right, then looked up at Link and whispered, "Master Brave, Can I use the chloro fruit to help you increase the space for your weapons? Link was surprised. You can do that too? I thought only Bokulin could help me increase the space for my weapons. Bokulin was a big guy in the chloro forest who looked like a big white radish. Like Peppa. Bokulin was also dancing with Americus. Peppa babbled, I'm not as good as Bokulin. I can help you increase the space for your weapons, but I can't specify a specific item to increase. In other words, the space I increase will randomly select one of the 3 weapons, shields, and bows and arrows. Link shook his head. It doesn't matter. Just help me increase the space for my weapons. Anyway, Link lacked the storage space for weapons, shields, and bows and arrows. So Peppa took 3 chloro fruits from Link, took out the maracas, and started to dance a very cute dance. Rogers and Natasha looked around and were very surprised because just when Peppa started to dance, there was suddenly a joyful music around them, coming from nowhere. Natasha firmly believed that there was a music player hidden in the little guy's maracas. Peppa finished dancing. Link felt a pop in his heart, and then there was an extra space in his weapon space. Now he could finally have an extra sword as a backup. At this time, Rogers covered his arm, in great pain. Natasha said, since we have defeated the centaur, let's go back quickly. Rogers needs to treat his arm. Link said, do you need ice to relieve the pain? Link stretched out his hand, and the surrounding water vapor condensed, and a rectangular ice cube appeared on Link's palm. Rogers thanked him, took the ice cube, looked left and right, and asked, new skills? Link nodded. Rogers laughed and said, what a pity. If you had lived 200 years ago, you could have become a millionaire by making ice. Natasha ran over like an antelope and picked up a small camera that had been placed on the ground. Natasha smiled and patted the camera and said to Link, the footage of you bravely defeating the monster has been saved. Link was a little confused. What did Natasha want with this thing? But this kind of thing was not important, so Link didn't pay much attention to it. At this time, the black horse came to Link's side and snorted. Link smiled and patted the horse's nose and whispered, thanks to you, you are the hero of this battle. Rogers said self-deprecatingly, if we count by military merit, this horse's contribution must be more than mine. Natasha looked at the black horse and said, Link, what are you going to do with him? Link said, adopt him. Then he picked up Zelda and put her on the horse's back. Natasha saw the black horse lowering its head, looking very docile and obedient, so she went forward to pet it, but the horse neighed and looked very fierce. Link frowned and said, be nicer. The black horse was warned and became docile again, allowing Natasha to pet it. Natasha was amazed. Although the battle was dangerous, it didn't take long. Natasha drove Rogers back to the city to heal his wounds, while Link and Zelda rode the black horse and walked back slowly. On the way, Link looked at the clear sky and couldn't help but sigh. Zelda in his arms smiled and said, the battles are too intensive. You are a little tired, right? Link nodded. Of course, Link knew that the next part was the plot of Iron Man 2, and the battles would not be like now, one after another, not allowing people to rest well. The two of them and the horse walked leisurely for an hour, but they didn't go far. At this time, a large car drove up to the side of the road, with Carlson sitting in the driver's seat and Nick sitting in the passenger seat. Stopping by the roadside, Nick rolled down the window and said, you guys are so leisurely. You probably won't be able to get back to the city until dark at this rate, so I'm here to pick you up. Natasha sent me the video, and I believe those big shots will see your contribution after watching the video of you eradicating monsters. Carlson smiled and said, I suggested that Nick add some passionate music, but unfortunately he refused, otherwise the effect would be better. The centaurs are so scary, and the captain was actually injured. Carlson also watched the video, still in shock. Fourth update. I'm so tired. Please support me. Thank you to my friend Lily Shooping for the 200 Kidian coins reward. Your award record has been flooding my writer assistant app. Thank you very much. Also thank you to my friend Bali Yaoshi burning paper for the 500 recommendation red envelopes. Thank you for your kindness, but please don't send them again. Sending red envelopes will not do any good to this work, but will do harm, and it will also waste money. If you really want to support this work with money, you can choose to reward, of course. I'm always embarrassed to ask for awards or save them for subscription in the future. In short, please don't send red envelopes. Thank you for publishing the God for 3 recommendation votes. Thank you for God for 2 recommendation votes. Thank you to bookfriend 151207082521-913 recommendation votes. Thank you to Lee for 7 recommendation votes. Thank you to Midnight Blood Bandit for 8 recommendation votes. Thank you to bookfriend 160,922,104,621,506 for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Zunan Union for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Deku, 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to LGBT Leogi for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Fizamo for 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to Huangu Shayandi for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to RHPK for 9 recommendation votes. Thanks to Zangfish for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Lishanka Ungalanti for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Rookie Ed for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Demon King Pterosaur for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Huhu0896 recommendation votes. Thanks to Urkiuayu for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Anrix for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Kangalan's Memory for 9 recommendation votes. Thanks to bookfriend 20180428230043738 recommendation votes. Thanks to Perfect Old Driver for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to bookfriend 1512101258200831 recommendation votes. Thanks to Y9,979,287,735 recommendation votes. Thanks to Jairushisho for 4 recommendation votes. Chapter 46 Link is cheesed. The men led the horses to the back of the carriage. Nick praised, "Where did you find such a docile horse?" Then he wanted to pat the horse's butt, but the black horse looked murderous and raised its hoof, almost kicking Nick to death. Zelda complained to Nick, "Mr. Fury, Epona is a girl." Link gave the black horse the same name because he missed his beloved horse in Hyrule. Nick said sullenly, "She almost kicked me in the stomach, and I have to apologize to her." The black horse proudly raised its tail and snorted at Nick. After settling the beloved horse, Link and Zelda got on the carriage. Nick said, "I have already dealt with Ross's matter. He had a mental illness and conducted crazy biological experiments and finally chose to commit suicide. I showed the video of you fighting the centaur to those bigwigs. They were also touched by your heroic deeds." Link sneered, "Didn't you say a while ago that I was a thug who deserved to be deprived of my life?" Nick smiled awkwardly, knowing that Link had seen through his tricks at the time, so he didn't say anything else. Nick said, "I talked to Tony before. Are you interested in forming the Avengers?" Link glanced at Nick and said, "Once a disaster really happens, the heroes who should stand up will always stand up." At this time, Peppa suddenly jumped out of Link's arms, then climbed onto the driver's seat with a grunt, and then jumped high and climbed on top of Nick's head, exclaiming, "Wow. So round. So fun." Nick looked depressed. Link and Zelda laughed out loud, and Carlson also tried to hold back his laughter. Nick was tangled up and said, "This little creature won't pee on my head?" Link smiled and shook his head. He looked up to Nick. "You know, Yahaha is very sensitive and instinctively fears people like Black Widow." But facing Nick Fury, the person in charge of global abnormal affairs, he didn't feel scared. This is too strange. Does being bald have the effect of increasing affinity? After Link and Zelda visited Rogers in the hospital, they returned to Tony's home in California. Jarvis said at the door, "Welcome back, Link, Zelda. Tony is having a party." Link and Zelda walked in. As soon as they opened the door, they heard loud music and various strong perfumes. Many men and women squeezed Tony's mansion full. Link pulled Zelda's hand and squeezed in to say hello to Tony. A drunk fat man was seen holding a wine glass. His cloudy eyes saw Link and the others, and he came forward with a greasy smile on his face. "My little beauty, your hairstyle is really beautiful," and stretched out his hand. Link frowned, being rude to the princess. "You are looking for death, right? But this is Tony's party, and this drunk fat man is a guest after all, and he didn't do anything to Zelda." It's not right for Link to beat him up, so he pulled Zelda behind him and said in a deep voice, "Sir, we." The drunk fat man didn't even look at Zelda, but stretched out his hand. Before Link could react, he pinched Link's face and smiled with a lecherous look. Such smooth skin. Link took a deep breath, and his hair almost stood up in anger. Zelda squatted down with her hands on her stomach. Link's face was livid, and the drunk fat man didn't notice Link's face and was still bragging, "I'm the editor-in-chief of tomorrow's Star Weekly. Would you consider it?" "Ah!" screamed. Without saying anything, Link lifted up the drunk fat man and said, "Jarvis, open the door." Jarvis smiled and said, "Okay, Link." Jarvis opened the door, and Link threw the drunk fat man out like shooting a basketball. The guests who were laughing beside him exclaimed, but they didn't know who suddenly started clapping, and then there was applause and cheers. They thought Link and the drunk fat man were playing some tricks. The cheers and cheers attracted Tony's attention. Tony was also drunk and boasting to the two Latin beauties. When he saw Link coming back, he picked up the microphone and shouted, "Welcome the elf, Link." Everyone didn't understand what was going on, but who cares? They just followed the host and shouted together, "Link." Tony came over, pulled Link to the high platform, raised Link's hand, and shouted, "The media has been looking for Link who defeated the two monsters. Let's cheer for this new superhero." Oh. The cheers were deafening. Tony was drunk. He put his arm around Link's neck and pressed his weight on him, making Link look a little embarrassed. When Link saw Zelda, he waved at him with a smile and ran upstairs. Link thought to himself, "Don't leave me here alone." Seeing that many people were taking pictures, Link had to laugh dryly and wave his hands. Tony was drunk and suddenly yelled, "Everyone, be quiet." The surroundings suddenly became quiet. No one knew why Tony was angry. As a result, Tony pointed at the people in the audience and said, "I know that some of you who work in the media are writing a bunch of worthless things, making up stories about me, making rumors about me, making up some messed up reports, and analyzing what's going on. Who is stronger, Iron Man or the elves?" The guests were confused. Why did Tony suddenly change his face and start to angrily accuse the media? But immediately, Tony smiled contemptuously. "Actually, I also want to know, who is stronger between me and Link? How about Link and I use this as a ring and have a fight?" Everyone cheered again. Oh. There was a noisy sound. As expected, Tony Stark never lacks news. Link broke free from Tony's arm and hurriedly said, "Tony, I just came back from the battle, and I'm not feeling well. You play first, I'll go upstairs to rest." Tony took a step back, and the floor under his feet suddenly split, and several mechanical arms stretched out, and within a few seconds, the iron suit was installed on Tony. Tony roared, "Take it." He stepped forward and punched, and Link hurriedly dodged, a little annoyed. First, Link hates alcohol. Second, Link hates drunkards. Third, Link hates drunkards who go crazy. Fourth, Link hates drunkards who go crazy and drag him down to embarrass himself. So he jumped down the stairs and went back to his room with a hard face. Tony laughed behind him. "Why are you running?" Then with a whoosh, he shot a laser at Link's back. Link didn't have a shield at hand. If he dodged, the laser would attack the person in front of him. So he glanced at the plate hitting the cake on the table next to him, reached out to take it, turned around, and used the plate to perform a perfect shield counter. The laser reflected and hit Tony's battlesuit, and Tony was hit into the wall. At this moment, everyone didn't realize the danger of the situation and was still cheering. "When I have money, I will definitely open a power plant myself. My community has power outages 4 or 5 times a month. It's so annoying. I'm just starting to write now, but there will be at least 3 more chapters. I'll do my best." I moved Iron Man 2 forward a few months. This plot is modeled after Road A beats Tony. Don't accuse me of lowering Tony's intelligence and forcing a conflict. Thank you for your support from Lily Water Bottle with 500 starting coins. Thank you for your support from Infinite Fantasy Township with 100 starting coins. Thanks to Minecraft for 500 Kidian coins. Thanks to Meowstar Reading Novels for 1000 Kidian coins. Thanks to Evil Moon Comet Arrival for 100 Kidian coins. Thanks to Clown's Tears number 344 recommendation votes. Thanks to Shanna for 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to Hegemon for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to XIU Cut 4D recommendation votes. Thanks to Midnight Blood Thief for 8 recommendation votes. Thanks to White and Black Sage for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Evil Moon Comet Arrival for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Sword Saint for 5 recommendation votes. Thanks to Long Long for 5 recommendation votes. Thanks to NZ for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Bookfriend 140318190214671 recommendation votes. Thanks to Devouring King for 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to Urkiuau for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Splitting Warlock for 6 recommendation votes. Thanks to Baydeo for 5 recommendation votes. Thanks to Rua Big for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to N Pride in the Bones, 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to Broken Wings for You, 7 recommendation votes. Thanks to Clown XX, 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Young Man Who Reads Novels Often, 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Shulayan Sao, 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Arafats, 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Infinite Fantasy Township, 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to SSGSNLZ, 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Yoshi Fang Fang 2, 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to Bookfriend 2018118003999192 recommendation votes. Chapter 47 Link vs. Iron Man. Tony crawled out of the ruins, smiling lazily, looking at the rioting crowd around him. He stretched out his hand and pushed out again, and Link blocked it with the plate again, but failed this time. The laser reflected on the wall and burned a big hole. Link shouted, "Tony." Link rushed over, grabbed Tony's wrists with both hands, and whispered angrily, "Enough. Don't mess around. It will hurt others." As a result, Tony smiled and said, "Why don't you let everyone have fun? Let me see what you are capable of now." Iron Man was flexible after all. He turned his wrist and sprayed hot air with his palm facing backwards. The two flew out and rolled into a ball. Tony threw Link out at once, breaking the glass and flying into the pool outside the house. Tony returned to the stage, stretched out 2 fingers, and shouted, "First." Ugh. The crowd continued to make noises. Link drank a belly full of swimming pool water rich in disinfectant and climbed out. He climbed up by holding the handrail, then broke it off and threw it hard, knocking Tony down with a clang. Link took out the game console from his pocket, which was now soaked with water and could not be opened. "Well, you want to fight, right? I will accompany you to the end." Tony sat up and said, "How can a duel be without a bet? Listen carefully. If Link can beat me, I will give Link this mansion and all the property in this mansion. Everyone, be my witness." "Okay." The spectators cheered in unison. "Tony is like this now. So that's it." Link reacted. "Tony is like this now because he is desperate about the palladium poisoning. Just like in the original Time and Space, he spends money everywhere and indulges in carnival to vent stress. It is too early for the disease to break out now, and it is not as serious as in the original Time and Space, but Tony has already begun to give up on himself and wait for his own destruction. It was impossible for Link to sit and watch the plot develop to that extent and then cover up and find reasons to rescue Tony under the pretext of letting Tony transform, not destroying the plot and not causing the butterfly effect. Link didn't care about that. He was going to tell Tony the truth today. But before that, Link decided to take out his anger on Tony. Link came to Tony, and Tony said drunkenly, "You, go get a weapon." Link smiled and said, "To deal with you?" He picked up a fork and a plate on the table. "This is a sword, and this is a shield. They are enough to deal with you." Everyone was shocked. Link actually used tableau to fight the fully armed Iron Man. This is excellent hot news material. Although this 15-year-old boy looks very respectful and peaceful, I didn't expect him to be so arrogant. Tony smiled, tilted his body, and put his hands on his waist, and said, "Link, you are teasing me." Link rushed forward, and kicked Tony in the head. Bang! Tony's head shook, and he lost his balance and hit the floor hard. Tony fired a laser at Link, and a cluster of hot light shot out. Link dodged with his head dodged, then grabbed Iron Man's wrist, and swept it around the ceiling. The gorgeous ceiling light fell down, and hit the center of the living room. There was a commotion among the crowd, and Link shouted, "Don't leave yet. Aren't you afraid of being swept by the light?" Everyone was frightened and ran away after a few seconds, leaving only Link and Tony. Zelda, who was upstairs, was still reading a book with headphones on and was not affected at all. Link pressed his knee on Iron Man's head and said, "Tony, calm down, you still." Before he could say the word help, Link was grabbed by Tony's ankle and thrown out. Tony stood up and fired a cannonball at Link. Link was holding a plate in the air and it exploded in his hand with a bang. The cannonball bounced out of the window and exploded. Link hit the wall hard, dizzy, and Iron Man came over. Iron Man was about to say, "You lose." Link's hand shook and the fork flew out. It was just an ordinary fork. With Link's power, it pierced into the gold titanium alloy visor on Tony's face. The image in front of Tony disappeared immediately. The tip of the fork trembled and poked a small wound on the bridge of his nose. Tony was so scared that he broke into a cold sweat and sobered up a lot. Link said, "You want to fight me?" He grabbed Iron Man's ankle, swung it up, and hit him on the ground. "You want a duel with me?" He slammed it back with his backhand. Bang, 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 bang. Link grabbed Iron Man and smashed him hard on the ground like throwing ramen. Even though Tony had armor on his body, he still couldn't stand such a beating. Tony hurriedly shouted, "Jarvis, take off the leg armor." Iron Man broke away from Link's hand and flew out, but he didn't fly out for 2 steps. Suddenly, he found that his body could not move. Jarvis hurriedly reported, "Sir, there is an unknown Space Force interference." Tony looked at Link in surprise. From the small holes in the visor with no image information left, he saw a line of space distortion between his body and Link. Link's magnetic grabber can control all metals, including Iron Man himself. Link pointed his finger at the ground, and Iron Man hit the ground hard. Link pointed at the sky, and Iron Man flew up to the sky and hit the ground again. Link repeatedly used the magnetic grabber to hit Tony, twice a second, and it took 10 minutes to get rid of this bad breath. At this moment, Tony's eyes were full of stars, and he lay on the ground and couldn't stand up. He shouted in a daze, I was told to give up 5 minutes ago." Link laughed and said, "I didn't hear it." Tony turned over and lay on the ground. He took off the visor with a click and found that the iron suit was already broken and could be directly taken to the scrap metal station. Link walked forward, supported his knees, and looked at Tony and asked, "Have you had enough fun?" Tony muttered, "Sooner or later I will design a suit that can defeat you. I have already set up a project, and you can't be so arrogant for a few days." Link used the magnetic grabber again, making Tony hang in the air. Tony shouted, "Good, good, good. I apologize. You win. This house belongs to you. I apologize to you for my recklessness." After a fierce battle just now, Tony was beaten by Link for 10 minutes. He was very frightened and sweated a lot. He had already woken up. Link said at this time, "I know that you are poisoned by palladium, and you feel that you are hopeless, right?" Tony's face darkened, and he said, "Did Zelda see it and tell you?" Link did not answer, but said directly, "I know one thing about your father." Tony snorted, "You went to New York and met my father's old friend Captain America, so you know a little about his scandals, right?" Link still did not answer, but continued, "It's also about your life. Thank you for the support of Infinite Fantasy Township 100 starting coins. Thank you for the support of Glass Aquarius 200 starting coins. Thank you for the support of Grady Black and White 1 recommendation vote. Thank you L. Leech and 6 recommendation votes. Thank you for Zuumoy 1 recommendation vote. Thank you for the support of History Spectators 4 recommendation votes. Thank you for Spitfire 9 recommendation votes. Thank you for the support of Jiangzi Swollen What to Do 6 recommendation votes. Thank you for the support of Book Friends 201801151312396312 recommendation votes. Thanks to Water for your 3 recommendation votes. Chapter 48, Confused Scientific Pioneers. After Link finished his story, Tony was silent for a long time. After a long time, he said, "I really don't know how to thank you. But you also saw my embarrassment just now and beat me like a salted fish in a can, so we are even." Although he said so, Tony silently remembered this precious favor in his heart. Tony laughed. Even if you have been dead for 20 years, you still want to teach me. Tony unbuttoned his battle suit and stood up. Because he was beaten up by Link before, he was still a little confused. Tony walked through the broken glass and came to the swimming pool. Tony stretched lazily. Good weather. A very good weather for scientific research. Scientific research. Hearing this favorite word, Zelda ran down and said, "Tony, do you need my help?" "Well, what did you do?" Zelda looked at the mess on the ground in surprise. Tony turned around and spread his hands exaggeratedly, saying, "Link just beat me up and took away this house. This house is now your property." Zelda looked confused. "What are you talking about?" He came to Link and asked him, but Link looked unhappy, and Zelda immediately apologized to him. "Sorry, I just felt very troublesome, so I left you here. Sorry." Tony came up and pulled one of them, saying, "Let's go back to the company. There is a big thing to do. A new element." "Go back to the company?" Link sighed. "New York. I just came back from New York. Let me go." Tony earnestly pleaded with Link. "Please, you told me this matter. If it really works, you saved my life for the second time. I hope you can witness this thing." Under Tony's repeated requests, Link had no choice but to set out on the road to New York with Zelda again. 3 trips back and forth in just a few days, and several battles, made Link a little annoyed with New York. So on the plane, Link fell asleep in his seat. Peppa brought a thin blanket and handed it to Zelda, who covered Link with it. Tony rubbed his head. Now his body was covered with bruises. He was really beaten badly by Link. Ever since I successfully created Iron Man, I wanted to compete with Link, but I didn't expect to get beaten up. Who taught Link his martial arts and strength? Zelda shook her head and said, "The time I have spent with Link is not long. He grew up in Zora, which is the territory of the fishmen. I have never seen Link lose." Tony was shocked. "Not even once?" Zelda nodded. "Not even once. Even if he encounters an opponent who is 10 times stronger than him, he can find a way to win. Even in the most prosperous kingdom of Hyrule, there is no opponent who can match Link. It's actually a waste of his talent to let him be my close knight." Tony rubbed his nose. "It's terrible. I actually have to fight with such a god of war." Zelda recalled the day 100 years ago when Link was seriously injured. After Ganon captured the palace, 4 heroes were trapped in the beast and killed. Link took me to escape. For 5 days and 5 nights, the army of guardians kept chasing me. That was the most brutal battle Link had ever encountered. Oh, the guardians can release lasers like the Iron Man suit, and after aiming, it is very difficult to get rid of them. Ordinary people can't withstand a blow at all. And for 5 days and 5 nights, Link had been fighting these endless guardians until the end, when he almost fainted due to severe exhaustion and serious injuries. And throughout the whole process, I was protected by Link as a burden. Except for some scratches and bruises, nothing happened. Tony looked at Link and thought to himself, "This boy has been through a lot." Then he couldn't help but have a great idea in his mind. Link has never been defeated. Only a genius like me can defeat this invincible Link. So Tony set himself a small goal: defeat Link. Then Tony's eyes were fixed on Peppa, and he poked Peppa with his finger and said, "Little thing, what's your name?" Peppa bared his teeth and claws, pretending to be very fierce, kicking Tony's hand with his little feet, and shouted tenderly, "I'm not afraid of you." "Hey." Zelda held Peppa in her arms and smiled. "His name is Peppa. He is a creature called Chloro from Hyrule, and he is a friend of Link and me." Tony crossed his arms and asked, "The creatures from Hyrule are all very strong. Does this little thing have any powerful abilities?" Zelda tilted her head and thought about it, and said, "It's especially good at hide and seek." Tony. After getting off the plane, Link looked at the sky of New York and felt helpless. Tony finally came to the company, and many people, including Peppa, had to report to Tony and sign some documents. As a result, Tony ignored it and went back to the office carrying 3 exhibition boards and ran to the laboratory on the top floor. Tony and Zelda were busy analyzing the information on the display board, while Link sat on the sofa and ate with Peppa, watching them busying around. It took half an hour to finally find a new element from the property left by Howard. Tony was full of hesitation. "I need a big space. Link, help me. My god. How much did you eat?" Link was still stuffing potato chips into his mouth, and there were a pile of empty packaging bags on the table. Link didn't have the habit of littering, and the trash can was already filled with packaging bags. On the table, one bag after another was spread out, stacked layer by layer, full, and looked particularly spectacular. Tony raised a thumb. It seems that I have found the secret of why you are so strong, but unfortunately I can't do it. Link, help me smash through this floor. The hammer is. Link came to the position designated by Tony, stepped on it, and stepped out a hole in the ground. Tony's finger pointed in the direction of the hammer trembled. Screams and alarms came from the underground office area in the hole. Pepper came up to him and asked, Tony, what are you doing? Why did you tear down the office? Tony shrugged. To be precise, I designated the plan and Link implemented it. Now this is not an office, but a great laboratory related to the future direction of science and technology, greater than Bell Labs. In the future, the glorious names of Tony, Zelda and Link, three great pioneers of science and technology, will shine in the physics textbooks of every junior high school student. Link wondered, how can breaking a few walls become a pioneer of science and technology? Sorry, this chapter is late. Everyone is welcome to support my work. Thank you for the support of Lily Water Bottle with 200 starting coins. Thank you for the support of the Indestructible Body with 4 recommendation votes. Thank you for the support of Hegemon with 1 recommendation vote. Thank you for the support of the Deceased Lioran with 3 recommendation votes. Thank you for the support of Douglas Salty Fish Lone Wolf Eye with 1 recommendation vote. Thank you for the support of Ni GGR with 5 recommendation votes. Thank you for the support of with 3 recommendation votes. Thank you for the support of Devouring King with 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to a book friend whose name is Japanese for the 4 recommendation votes. Chapter 49 Naming New Element. Zizzy. The light was poured into the triangular metal to charge it. Under the strong light, the office was actually darkened. Tony murmured, a new element is born. After the light disappeared, Tony walked forward, picked up the triangular glowing metal with a clamp, and installed it on the reactor. Jarvis said, the compatibility of the new element is being analyzed. The reactor has accepted the new energy core. Tony waved his fist. Done. Then he took the reactor and handed it to Link, saying, I leave it to you. Help me install it. Please be gentle this time. Oh. Link didn't even move his hands. He used the magnetic gripper to pull out the original reactor in Tony's body in one go, and then installed the new element reactor. The whole process took no more than 2 seconds. Tony just cried out in pain when Link had finished the change. Tony panted, you are a very courageous man and suitable to be a doctor, but I think, if you were a doctor, your patients would be as terrified as I am. Zelda looked left and right curiously, then asked for the old reactor in Link's hand, and said to Tony, can you give me this old one? Tony stroked his chest and said, of course. This old reactor represents a short and primitive era of micro-reactors. It is quite commemorative. Zelda played with the old reactor, and suddenly many bold ideas popped up in her mind. But she didn't say it, and said to Tony, what are you going to name the new element? Tony nodded. I've already thought of the name. It's called Link Element. Link was stunned. Ah. This is your father. Tony interrupted and said, if it weren't for you, I might not know the legacy my father left me until I died. Just like Arabic numerals were invented by Indians, whoever inherits it has the right to name it. Besides, there are too many things named after Stark in this world. We are standing on the Stark building now. The times always require innovation. The Stark element sounds a bit old-fashioned. What do you think, Pepper? Link didn't comment. The new element was created by Stark, and how to name it was his own business. But Link also knew that this was a way for Stark to express his gratitude, so it was hard to refuse. Pepper hadn't reacted yet and was a little confused. Why do you want to change to a new element? Tony was much more frank, now that the physical crisis had been resolved. To be honest, without the new element, I would slowly die of poisoning. This kind of thing is really hard to talk about, but the crisis has been resolved, so it's not difficult for me to say it. Tony is a loner. In the original time and space, he was unwilling to tell his relatives and friends when he was dying. He indulged in fun, spent money everywhere, alienated Pepper, forced Roddy away, gave away all his precious things, and made himself lonely and penniless, chewing on his own pain and dying. Is it easy for such a person to talk about his own pain? Pepper was startled. Such an important thing. You didn't tell me? Tony was a little lazy and smiled. Isn't it resolved? Tony stretched his body. Ah, what a good weather. I feel like I'm back on the beach of the Hawaiian Islands in the 1990s. The passionate and hot sunshine of the times makes people energetic, even if they don't sleep for 3 days. As soon as he finished saying that he was energetic, Link yawned. Tony frowned and looked at Link. Oh, young people nowadays, where is all the energy? When I was your age, I was doing things in school and hooking up with the cheerleader. Link said truthfully, I just finished fighting a guy called Iron Man. I'm really tired. Link has been busy these days, fighting skeletons, fighting Cyclops, fighting the Hulk, fighting abominations, fighting centaurs, and fighting Iron Man. Even if Link is brave, he can't stand this back and forth. Tony touched his nose a little embarrassed. Pepper looked at Tony in disbelief and said, you actually hit a child. What have you been doing these days? Tony raised his hand and said, okay, I did act a little ridiculous these days. I admit my mistake. Pepper took the opportunity to say, I have hundreds of documents for you to sign. Since you finally came to work, why not get rid of them all at once? Tony shook his head and said, I still have something very important to do. Pepper asked, what is it? Tony spread his hands to the 2 young men and women. Take them to have fun for a few days. You have seen it on the news. Link has been so busy with business recently, and today he finally has a break. As the master of New York, I naturally have to take them to relax. Pepper asked, when did you become the master of New York? Tony shrugged, now. Then he turned around and clapped his hands. Kids, where do you want your uncle to take you to play? Link and Zelda looked at each other and nodded. They had nothing to do now. Ganon was currently missing, and it would take some time before the next Marvel plot. Link has not had a few days to rest since he came here, so why not relax now? Zelda smiled and said to Pepper, want to go out for a walk? Pepper hugged Link's neck and shook him, saying tenderly, sure. Tony was in a dilemma at the moment. Zelda and Link were not very old, and he, a man in his 30s, couldn't think of where to take Link and Zelda to play. So, he called Roddy and whispered behind Link and the others, hey, Roddy, where do you think it's appropriate to take to junior high school students to play? Roddy, I'm on duty. Tony, this is also very important. Just treat this as providing important advice on the daily maintenance of a nuclear bomb. Roddy, okay. Go shopping, buy clothes, organize a sports event, party? Tony nodded, okay. Very good suggestions. I wish you a happy time using the war machine I gave you. Roddy suddenly got a little excited. Let me tell you, I made a super cool paint job for the war machine. I'll send you a picture later. Tony frowned. Oh, it must be the Captain America style. I always doubt the aesthetics of your military. Then he hung up the phone. Turning around, he said to the 2 young men and women, vacation time has begun. Then he said to Pepper, I also invite you to go with me. Pepper smiled and said, forget it, Tony, I'd better work diligently and earn some hard-earned money. Then he left in high heels. The 3 of them got in the car, and Tony, the security guard, was in charge of driving. Tony said, let's go shopping. What do you want to buy? Link said, a hard sword. Zelda, a book about quantum physics. Pepper, yeah, haha. Tony, welcome book friends to collect recommendation tickets to support. There is one chapter before 12 o'clock. Thank you Rusky 564 100 starting coins reward support. Thank you Lily Water Bottle for 400 starting coins reward support. Thank you Minecrafter for 100 starting coins reward support. Thank you Sabi Cheyenne 101500 starting coins reward support. Thank you Ni, GGR for 5 recommendation tickets. Thank you U for 3 recommendation tickets. Thank you Devouring King for 4 recommendation tickets. Thank you Gudgeon, and I Fight for 2 recommendation tickets. Thank you Yuan Ki Lang Lang for 10 recommendation tickets. Thank you Bookfriend 1403181902146712 recommendation tickets. Thank you Rusky for 1 recommendation ticket. Thanks to JokerXX for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Liang Cheng for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Shulayan Sao for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Jio Oshishuo for 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to Jian Sheng for 5 recommendation votes. Thanks to Guzilian Pride, 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to Spitfire for 9 recommendation votes. Thanks to Chinamo for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Zion G Sniper for 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to Bookfriend 2018092819301662 for 1 recommendation votes. Thanks to Upiaoan for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Bookfriend 201703301756593072 recommendation votes. Thanks to Zhao Ranruameng for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Kuang Bio Snail Saber for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Pink Hair for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to ZUIUK for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Liang Yuming for 5 recommendation votes. Chapter 50 Tony's Troubles. Tony also stayed with Zelda and Link for a while and got to know their preferences. So he went to a camera store and bought a full set of photography equipment for Zelda and Happy carried it to the car. Zelda was very grateful and took many photos around Link and Tony. Then Tony took them to another store and bought a super expensive black motorcycle for Link. The shape was sharp but not alternative, and the sound when it started was also very nice. Tony smiled and said, "When you grow up a little bit, you can ride it." Link smiled bitterly. He had been lying for 100 years, and this body had changed. It was still a question whether he could grow up. Maybe he would have to keep the appearance of a 14 or 15-year-old body forever. Zelda was the same. She had been entangled with Ganon for 100 years. The body of a normal person could not maintain such a long time without eating, drinking, and sleeping. Zelda once analyzed her own and Link's bodies and found that their bodies seemed to be developing in the direction of energy. Rather than being a person, they were more like a miniature sun. Although Tony is aloof, he is always considerate to his true friends. He is also a man who pays attention to efficiency. He immediately took Link and Zelda to buy clothes. On the way, Tony said, "You don't have to be so frugal. Zelda, you are also a girl. You should dress up well. If Link is taken away by another girl, you will cry." Zelda blushed, but did not deny her relationship with Link. In fact, Zelda and Link, and their definitions of each other are very vague. This is a pure and complex emotion. It is right to say that it is love. It is also like the loyalty of the monarch and the minister, and it is also like close friends. This kind of relationship, neither of them can find the right words to describe. Forcibly use a word, it is a symbiotic relationship of life and death. Compared with the gods in the Marvel world who are actually human beings, there are gods in the Hyrule continent. So if there is anything you don't understand, just treat it as the fate of the goddess Hylia. The two of them regard each other as a gift from the goddess Hylia. Although Zelda is a princess, she lives a simple life and doesn't like to dress up. She still wears the Hyrule style travel clothes she had when she traveled through time. She didn't refuse Tony's kindness and picked out a few cheap clothes. Mainly, she and Link went to help Peppa pick out some cute little clothes for Peppa in the children's area. Peppa was not used to wearing clothes. After walking a few steps, he stepped on the hem of his pants and fell down, and then burst into tears. Link and Zelda were in a panic, while Tony watched the fun. In fact, Tony was not very experienced in taking Link and Zelda out to play. He has always been in banquets and bars. He is a famous playboy at a young age and is conceited. He has few friends around him, and there are no young friends of 14 or 15 years old. He feels like an ordinary parent taking his children out shopping. Tony thought, "I hope my future brat can be as sensible as Link and don't learn from me." Wait, why do I think Link is sensible? Although Link gives people a very obedient feeling, he has done a lot of big things recently. So Tony added, "My future brat, don't learn from Link to fly all over the sky on the shield." Seeing that the clothes have been bought, where should I go with Link to play next? Just shopping in one store after another feels like doing a task. Link helped Tony a lot today. Tony really wanted to thank Link, but a motorcycle can't repay Link's kindness. Tony fell into entanglement again, and he couldn't help feeling that he was old and the generation gap between him and the children was too big, not to mention that there was a super generation gap between him and Link and Zelda. Tony reflected, why did I come here? The two children should be allowed to play by themselves. I'm a bit redundant. At this time, Link, an unexpected person, appeared here. Tony looked back and his eyelids jumped. Oh my god, this old antique, why is he here? It was Captain America Rogers. Rogers walked up and looked at Tony with a haughty face, thinking, this man's temperament is very similar to his father, but why does he feel weird? Tony greeted him, hey, Captain. How are you accepting modern life? Rogers thought, you asked a similar question last time, and spread his hands. I'm accepting it. For example, I came here to go shopping in the mall. Link and Zelda also saw Rogers coming and greeted him. Zelda asked, Captain, is your arm okay? Rogers smiled. My body has a strong ability to recover. I thought you went back. Zelda smiled bitterly. Go back and come back again. When Peppa saw Rogers, he jumped off Link's shoulder, ran with his cart to find a volleyball from somewhere, and threw it over. Rogers reached out to catch it, looked at Peppa and said, do you want to play volleyball? Peppa shouted, I'm so strong, right? The two were still not on the same channel, but they looked like old friends. Tony looked at the volleyball and suddenly said, let's play volleyball. Tony was not used to hanging out with Link and Zelda, and there was nothing to do except shopping. Seeing the volleyball, he thought of something new, playing volleyball. Tony took the volleyball from Rogers and said, I see this Captain America, he seems to be so idle, and doesn't fit in with the modern and tight life. It seems that he has nothing to do. How about we play volleyball together? How about me, the captain, Link, and Zelda? Peppa jumped to get the volleyball in Tony's hand. Zelda squatted down, touched Peppa's head, and smiled. Peppa, do you want to play volleyball too? Peppa didn't know how to play volleyball, but he thought it would be fun, so he shouted, okay. Rogers really had nothing to do. Under Tony's encouragement, several people came to the beach in New York. Tony pulled up the net, and Peppa stood on the net swaying like a tightrope walker. Zelda had just given Peppa a task, surf. Rogers and Tony were on the left, and Zelda and Link were on the right. Link felt a little puzzled. Looking at Tony and Rogers, who had changed into sportswear, he thought that these two people teamed up, and they should be able to. And, how did they play volleyball? Peppa shouted tenderly, I'm going to serve. 1, 2, 3, yo. The volleyball was thrown into the air. Tony and Zelda were both in the back, while Link and Rogers were agile, and were responsible for pressing forward. Although Link was stronger, Rogers had the height advantage, and hit the volleyball to the corner. Zelda quickly came to the landing point of the volleyball, gently hit the volleyball, and hit it to Link. Sorry, because there are too many votes and the author has a limited number of words to leave message, I may cancel the thank you for your recommendation votes in the future. But even so, I will remember every reader who supports me. Thank you. Thank you to Devouring King for your 100 starting coins reward support. Thank you to Glass Water Bottle for your 200 starting coins reward support. Thank you to Devouring King for your 100 starting coins reward support. Thank you to Glass Water Bottle for your 200 starting coins reward support. Thank you to Crazy 4 Cats for your 3 recommendation votes. Thank you to Xiaoxioling Feng for your 3 recommendation votes. Thank you to Helex Girl for your 2 recommendation votes. Thank you to A Bag of Sky Peppers for your 1 recommendation vote. Thank you to Bookfriends 151207082521-913 recommendation votes. Thank you to Midnight Blood Thief for your 8 recommendation votes. Thank you to Bookfriends 1609221046215063 recommendation votes. Thank you to Salted Fish Woo for your 1 recommendation vote. Thank you to SSGSNLZ for your 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to The Withered Butterfly for 7 recommendation votes. Thanks to Whose Boy Are You for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Yugo Feng for 5 recommendation votes. Thanks to Minecraft for 4 recommendation votes. Thanks to Xiaoxiozi for 6 recommendation votes. Thanks to Shenke for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Hitanio for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Myowzes for 3 recommendation votes. Thanks to Zabi, Hua Jiangshan for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Demon King Pterosaur for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Rui Sheng for 2 recommendation votes. Thanks to Shuiao 201710231144562022 recommendation votes. Thanks to Sabi Cheyenne Wang 018 recommendation votes. Thanks to Kuang Shere Ocean for 1 recommendation vote. Thanks to Rua Big for 1 recommendation vote. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.